started.
Okay.
Let's see. Before I start, I just want to
This
make sure
conference will now be recorded.
Hello and welcome to the South Burlington Development Review Board meeting for January 5th, 2021. My name is Matt Coda. I'm the chair of the South Burlington Development Review Board. With me is Vice Chair Brian Sullivan, Mark Baer, Don Philibert, Alyssa Aaron, Jim Langdon. John Wilking is absent, as I understand. John, if you're out there as one of the callers, please let me know. But otherwise, it'll just be the six of us tonight. In attendance also from the city of South Burlington is Marla Keene, our development review planner, and Delilah Hall, our zoning administrator. And everyone will have the opportunity who wishes to listen and speak, just as like a regular meeting. Are there any additions or deletions or changes in the order of agenda items from the staff or the development review board members? Okay, hearing none. Number 2 on the agenda is announcements. I always begin all of our go-to-meeting online meetings with the announcement that says, if you are not speaking, please do click the little button that says mute, either on your phone or your tablet or computer. That way, if it's your dog barking in the background or ambient sounds, there's nothing to distract us from the business or the hearing at hand, but there will be absolutely time for everyone to speak that needs to speak. You can accomplish this in 2 ways. One is during the public hearing a moment of each application, I'll pause and ask anyone that's on the phone or wishes to speak a chance to speak. There's also a chat box if you're on a tablet or a computer that you can enter your name into that chat box to say that you have a comment. That's the same chat box you should use to let us know that you're here and what project, what agenda item you're interested in. It's necessary to do that in order to obtain party status, should you wish to appeal a decision made by this board at some point. If you don't have access to the chat box because you're on the phone and you want to let us know that you're here, even if you don't speak, send an email to Marla Keene, our development review planner. Her email address is mkeene, M-K-E-E-N-E, @sburl.com, SBURL.com. And that way we'll have a confirmation that you were in attendance tonight. That's our virtual sign-in sheet that we use for all of our go-to-meeting agenda items. Okay, so number 3 is comments and questions from the public not related to the agenda. If you'd like to say something about something other than the items on the agenda tonight, you can either enter your name in the chat box to let us know that you have it. I can call on you and give everyone 3 minutes who wishes to, or simply shout out your name and I will put you in the order that I hear you. So I'm going to pause here and listen. And not hearing anyone. I'm looking at the chat box and not seeing anyone that wishes to make a public comment not related to the agenda. I'll pause one moment in case anyone wants to add their, and not hearing any. I'll jump right into agenda item number 4, which is preliminary and final plat application SD 2101 of Lark-Inns LP to amend an existing planned unit development on 13.26 acres consisting of a 121-room hotel, 84-room hotel, a 60-room hotel, a restaurant, and a 3-unit multifamily building. The amendment consists of converting the 84-unit hotel to a 78-unit multifamily building at 720 Shelburne Road. Who is here for the applicant?
Joe Larkins here.
Hey, Joe. Is there anyone else with you?
Skip McClellan from Krebs and Lansing.
Hey,
James Finley shares from Wagner Hodgson Landscape Architects.
Great. James, anyone else? So I will note that the applicant, this is in the agenda packet, the applicant inadvertently mailed abutter notices 14 days prior to the scheduled hearing. Notice to abutter is required to be given 15 days prior to the scheduled hearing. But 24 VSA 4464 states that no defect in notice shall invalidate the action of the appropriate municipal panel where reasonable efforts are made to provide adequate posting and notice. Staff recommends the board review the application on January 5th today and continue the hearing to January 20th, 2021, even if there's not any outstanding issues, for the purpose of allowing the opportunity for additional public input. Amended abutter notices indicating this approach have been mailed, just so the applicant is aware. This is preliminary and final plat application. Just for anyone out there, what is preliminary and final plat application? That means we're in the final stage of review, and with the last 6 months, we've heard a sketch plan about this. This hearing, the applicant is asked to describe the project, and the board will step through the staff comments. We'll consider the conformance of the applicable land development standards, and we'll invite public comments. We may choose to continue, as we will in this one. If there are questions to be further examined in a future date, will be announced. At the end of this stage of any preliminary final plat application, we'll vote on whether to close the hearing, and once closed, we'll issue a decision. The decision will be mailed to the applicant and those who have identified themselves as interested person. Again, if you're interested in this project, please enter your name in the chat box or send an email to Marla. No appeal of the board's decision is made within 30 days. The decision is final. The applicant may proceed with the project. This is the first preliminary and final plat application. So I would ask Joe, James, and Skip to raise your right hand and swear to tell the truth under penalty of perjury.
I do.
Okay, just to affirm that I heard from both Joe, James, and Skip that they have said yes. So thank you for that. And now is the time where we have heard this in sketch plan, but now is the time where I ask the applicant to introduce their project again, talk about what you want to do here, and specifically for us, what has changed since we last saw this project at sketch. Whoever wants to take that.
I'll go first. Skip McClellan from Krebs and Lansing. The project remains a 78-unit multifamily building that's currently hotel suites. The changes that we've made, there was a discussion in the sketch plan application about providing access, a walking path, a pedestrian access to Harborview Road or to the adjoining property to the east, and we've added that path. We've added some landscaping. Wagner Hodgson has enhanced the area. We've chosen an area to the east of the subject building on the plot here that you see on your screen. And Wagner Hodgson has enhanced that area with plantings and with boulders and with a path and so forth. So those are pretty much the major changes that have happened since sketch plan. So very little has changed. We're still not doing a lot around the outside except for enhancing the passive recreation area. We're going to have the same bike rack, same bike situation that we had before, which is a 10 bike rack that's going to be in that area to the east of the subject building. And
we're still taking an 84-room hotel and converting it to a 78-unit multifamily building. Is that right, Skip?
Yes, we are. Yes, that's exactly right.
Okay. So as we look through staff comments, we'll offer some notes and get some feedback from you. The first staff comment that we saw was that sketch staff asked the board for direction on whether to provide a detailed review of elements of the PUD which are not proposed to change. The board generally felt that this was unnecessary, therefore this review is limited to the elements of the PUD which are proposed to change, except where noted. Just want to put that out there as we start this process. The second substantial note was regarding landscaping and screening requirements. It was noted at sketch that existing landscaping does not appear to match the previously approved landscaping. The applicant should either restore the site or propose an alternative. It appears the applicant has not updated their plans to reflect this, and it's shown only existing landscaping. Staff recommends the board require the applicant to show the previously approved landscaping on the plans. Landscaping must be fully present prior to the applicant being allowed to occupy the proposed use. Staff notes this applies to the entire PUD, not just the area in proximity to the building proposed to be converted. So we've got old landscaping plans that staff views needs to be updated to reflect what's on them and what's coming. Skip, do you have a response to that?
I believe that James from Wagner Hodgson has talked to Marla today, and they've made an agreement to to provide the drawings that she needs so that we can have it all reviewed in time for the next whatever date that this gets pushed to, that she'll be able to say it's okay at that point.
Is that right, James, Marla? There was a conversation?
Yeah,
Well,
I can chime
please
in on that. That's correct.
Yep.
So the landscaping plan that we had submitted previously was just the local areas to the change. So we're going to submit a new plan tomorrow that covers the entire PUD. I have all of the existing approved vegetated plantings noted from the 2017 approved plan. So I will just double check the periphery stuff on the PUD and then submit that plan that shows that the existing landscape is intact. If there are any missing plants or trees or anything, I'll note those, and then we will look at the value that we have proposed to be installing with this versus the value of those plants to make sure that you are whole landscape wise.
Great. Thank you for that, James. Thanks, Skip. The next pertinent comment from staff regarding the stormwater. Stormwater section has reviewed Lark-Inn comfort suites prepared by Krebs and Lansing Consulting Engineers and offers a couple of comments. There's 5 comments listed in the packet. The second comment is one that's sticks out to me, which is the wetland advisory area shown on the Vermont Agency of Natural Resources Atlas. It's recommended that the applicant contact the State Wetlands Division to confirm that the proposed mowed path is an allowable use in this wetland buffer. Has that contact been made, Skip?
No, that won't be required. We've done a delineation. Arrowwood Environmental has done a delineation of that area and found no wetlands in that specific area. I put together a sketch today called SK1 and forwarded off to Marla. I didn't get any confirmation. I hope she got it, showing that our path is well out of any buffers and there are no wetlands in that area.
So in other words, no permission needed to mow that path because the wetlands doesn't affect the wetlands in your position.
That's right, exactly. The map that was referred to there is an alert. You know, it points to an area that may have a wetland, but we found no wetlands there.
So there was
should be
field
able to
map.
bring that up in just a second.
Okay, good.
There you go.
So you can see where the proposed path is, and Skip is indicated on the right-hand side of the drawing, a wetland delineation that was done in 2019, showing that the nearest wetland is on the other side of Harborview Road and more than 50 feet away, and that there weren't any wetlands identified within 50 feet of the path. So
Okay.
staff satisfied with the response to that comment.
So it's resolved. Great. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. The next significant staff comment is regarding bicycle parking and storage. Staff recommends the board require the applicant to provide short-term bicycle spaces near the entrance of each building in the quantity specified, or demonstrate that such bicycle parking already exists in accordance with 13.14B1B. Skip, your response to that request?
I'm sure that we agree. The bike racks are not out there today, but yes, I'm sure that we can find a place for these bike racks. And there's much indoor bike racks. If Marla, you're aware of that Lark-Inns are proposing an indoor bike storage facility to go along with this also. So if that changes any of those numbers, then we would talk about that afterwards. But the answer is yes.
Have you done an inventory of what bike parking exists on the site today? Do you know if any of the required bicycle parking is being provided?
I personally, I do not. I do not. No.
Okay.
So
Well,
we're going to have you propose where the required bicycle parking is going to go.
Okay.
No, I think that just a quick site visit would probably.
Our landscape plan is,
really quickly.
we are showing 10 parking bike spots, but by the, I guess the eastern entrance where we have that new landscaped area.
Right.
that we're- So that's where it would be.
Okay, so that's for the building that's the subject of this application, but this does apply to the whole PUD.
Oh, okay. I don't know that. I can go
Right.
by tomorrow.
So
and
there's
check, yeah.
13 spaces for the 121 room hotel, 10 spaces for the 60 room hotel, 4 spaces for the restaurant.
The 10 spaces we'll have covered because that'll be the 10 spaces we've provided for this conversion project, for this project.
Right, but you need 17
Right.
spots for bikes. So,
Okay.
Well,
and
so
we've
that's
got
not quite
time.
right,
That's not right?
because there's the 121 room hotel, the 60 room hotel, the restaurant that are staying in addition to the 78 unit building.
Oh, right.
78 unit building requires 8 bicycle parking spaces. And keep in mind, these aren't like individual used, that's 2 spaces, so that's 4 used for the 78 unit building, and then 7 used for the 121 room hotel, and 5 used for the 60 room hotel. And then 2 used, I guess, for the restaurant.
Is that what they're
If you
called? Mark?
have bicycle parking today, some of that may be able to count. I just, I don't go there a lot. I went there once for a conference and brought my bicycle inside because I couldn't find a bike parking spot, so I'm not really sure where they are.
Well, we'll make sure that's addressed in the drawings that we can submit soon. In fact, James's drawings, James is going to have to submit a drawing for this landscape question. And so we can make sure that either a proposal or an explanation of what's out there is included in that.
Yeah.
I'll
I'll go by.
That sounds great.
I'll make sure.
Are there
that's-
any questions from the board before I invite public comments? Okay, if there's anyone out there that would like to comment about this project from the public, please do one of two things. Just shout out your name and let me know that you have a public comment, or alternatively, you can write the comment in the chat box where I can read it, or you can just tell me that you want to make a public comment in the chat box. I'm going to take a pause here. I don't hear anyone. Looking at the chat room, I don't see anyone. So then I would turn it, not hearing any, not seeing any, I would turn back to the board and to staff. We're going to continue this. Are there any other questions that you'd like the applicant to answer before we set a continuation date? Hearing none. Marla, is there an appropriate date for the calendar?
We have some space for them at the next hearing on January 20th. It's a Wednesday, as long as that's okay with you guys.
Skip? James?
Yes, that's great. Yes.
Okay, then
Perfect.
move that we continue SD 2101 to January 20th. Is there a second?
That.
Is that a second from Don?
Yes.
Okay, second from Don, and we'll do a roll call. Brian Sullivan,
Aye.
Mark Bear,
Aye.
Don Philibert,
Aye.
Alyssa Aaron.
Aye.
Jim Langen. Jim, I didn't hear you. Are you on the line? John Wilking, not present. Matt Coda, the chair, votes aye. And
Matt,
we have
can you hear me now?
continued. Yep, got you now. You got aye on a continuance?
This is Jim voting aye.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So 601, and we've continued this agenda item for January 20th. Thank you very much. Skip, James, Joe. See you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll get my camera working next time.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Okay, we now move to agenda item number 5. Agenda item number 5 is master plan application MP 2101 of South Village Communities LLC to amend a previously approved master plan for a multi-phase 334 unit planned unit development. The amendment consists of increasing the maximum allowable coverage from 13.9% to 20% removing the educational facility, adding mixed use, removing the requirement to construct additional dedicated southbound turn lanes on Spear Street, and reducing the total unit count to 321 at 1840 Spear Street. Who is here for the applicant?
I am Robin Jeffers from SD Ireland and South Village Communities.
Hey, Robin.
Dave Marshall from Civil Engineering Associates.
Patrick O'Brien from SD Ireland and South Village Communities.
Hey, Patrick.
And Corey Mack is here.
Yes, Corey Mack from RSG.
Great. Thank you, Corey. So this is one of three applications dealing with South Village Communities, but we're going to take care of master plan application first for those that are watching or listening at home. This is just dealing with the master plan application right now. It is a master plan application, and so I need Robin, Dave, Patrick, and Corey to raise your right hand and swear to tell the truth under penalty of perjury.
I do.
I do.
For the record, I heard all four say I do. And tell us a little bit about, Robin, if you'd like to, or Dave, tell us a little bit about the master plan amendment here.
So we have, this is Robin. We have met there's 5 triggers for a master plan amendment, and we have met one of them, and that is in the category of lot coverage. And we are asking for approval of an increase of lot coverage to 20%. 30% is allowable in the SEQ. We're well under that threshold. Where we want to get that straightened out so that we can move ahead with the additional applications. Additionally, we are asking for 2 conditions of our original master plan to be no longer required, and those are left turn lanes on Spear Street at South Jefferson Road and Preserve Road. And third, we have asked that our description be amended. We're no longer going to be having a school use. We are intending a mixed use lot, and our numbers are reducing from 334 to 321.
Right. And some of this is because, just to sort it out in my own head and for clarification for everyone listening and watching this, some of this is familiar ground because it is connected to other plat applications, I believe. I mean, we've heard some of this in sketch, but we've also heard some of this in other applications dealing with the turn lanes. Is that right, Marla? There's so many different projects, it's hard to keep which one's straight, but
right, a lot of this has been previewed and discussed as upcoming as part of other applications. This is the culmination of many conversations.
Not to dive right into the southbound turn lanes, but there was a decision made in a prior application that has been approved by the DRB regarding the southbound turn lane on Spear Street, correct? That wasn't something, just want to refresh my memory, that wasn't something we discussed at sketch, that was something we decided in a master plan, excuse me, on a...
Right, that's final plat application SD 1929, at which time the applicant asked for removal of the requirement to construct the southbound left turn lane at the south entrance. So they're asking for that again, and that's addressed in staff comment number 1. They're also asking for removal of the condition to add a left turn lane at the north entrance. That's discussed in staff comment number 2.
Right, which was not previously discussed with staff comment number 2.
It was not previously formally requested, though it was sort of informally discussed at the sketch plan level.
So not to take things out of order here, but if we already approved a methodology for requiring a study to determine whether or not there needs to be a southbound turn lane in an approved plat application, just playing out the idea, if we're changing it in the master plan, or we also didn't have to redo it in the other application?
No, but the staff comment does note that this would be considered requesting for the same thing and therefore not allowed request.
Right. No, I understand.
Like we talked about on other recent applications, the Stowe Club Highlands test, if there's no change in circumstance or change in regulations, they're not allowed to make the same request again.
Right. Got it. Okay. So regarding the 13.9% to 20% coverage, that it is, we can allow up to 30%. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's what the base of the zoning district would allow.
And okay. So the question is whether remove the requirement to construct an additional dedicated southbound turn lanes. I'll let the board, you know, offer their thoughts on that. I thought we had a pretty decent compromise, and I tend to side with staff regarding the wanting to keep that in place, which requires, as I recall, at the, I forget the number, but is it the 240th zoning permit application or something like that? I'm trying to review my notes here. Or is it the
There were
250th?
Can I add to this?
Yeah, please, Robin.
I have a response which I'd like to read, but just to the comments that you've already made, we believe that the situation is ripe. We have met the thresholds, or we're on the threshold of meeting the thresholds. And we also have a different traffic plan now, which takes into consideration full build out. And when we asked before, the traffic plan that we had did not. So we are presenting a traffic plan that is updated, accounts for full build out. And again, we are at the threshold of the number of zoning permits that you required the last time we reviewed this. So we feel the time is ripe to review this and to consider the second request as well for the Preserve Road.
Okay, so the first request regarding the turn lane on the southbound left turn lane on Spear Street. We're sent, we in the previously approved application, we said not that you have to build it, but that we have to have a traffic study when you reach a certain zoning permit threshold to determine whether or not to build it. And Robin, what you're saying is that you're there and that you have done the study already?
We have done the new traffic study. It's what we submitted with this application. One of the thresholds was 30 units in phase 3 needed to have had zoning permits. 29 do now, and there are 4 applications on Delilah's desk in her queue that have been made. As soon as any one of those is issued, we'll be at that 30. The other was for 240 units, which was an alternate, not a same condition. Overall units, and we have also met that threshold. So both thresholds have been met. We have a new traffic study that is for the full build out, and it covers both of those left-hand turn lanes in its scope.
So Marla, thank you, Robin. So Marla, is this nearly ripe? Is this now the time that we review the traffic study to determine whether a southbound turn lane is warranted, or do you disagree?
So if what Robin is saying is that they're at the 29th, I think it makes sense to consider it now, since the condition you can see on your screen was for the 30th. You know, I'm sure that those other zoning permits will be issued by the time we're done with this. So it seems like it's now is the time. So they did submit a traffic study. The traffic study is included in the packet. There were some comments in the stuff, or some questions in the staff comments about the traffic study. Oh dear, sorry, Delilah stepped away and I'm trying to present and read my notes at the same time, and it's much more difficult than I expected. So maybe it'd be good to review staff comment number 2, because that pertains to the traffic study in general, and then we can sort of discuss how we're feeling about this traffic study and whether those two, the time is right to consider whether to remove the condition to construct 2 round turn lanes.
So yeah, hearing that we're at 29, nearly 30, this is going to come up fairly soon. Now seems to be appropriate. I have not dove into the traffic study, so I don't. But the staff is recommending at point number 2 that South Village provide testimony regarding the impact. Is there someone here that can do that?
Yes, Corey Mack from RSG is here to do that.
Okay, Corey, can we get you to give us your analysis and summary?
Corey, I think you're muted.
Okay, thank you. It's always funny when you proceed and you think you're not muted and nobody tells you otherwise. So thank you for telling me. All right.
Sure.
So specifically with the comment that we've received here, it says provide testimony for the traffic consultant regarding the impact of Midland Avenue. So that's a pretty specific piece of the work that we've done. So, you know, what Robin referred to earlier was an update to a traffic study that we've done, which basically took a look at the full build out of the latest development program and prepared trip generation estimate for the entire, multi-phase construction of South Village, and then it included those volumes into a traffic count that was conducted by VTrans in June of 2016. And in doing all that, we, kind of wiped clean all the traffic that was already going to South Village and then added in all this other estimated traffic to develop this model of full build out for that area. That traffic study also included the turn lane warrants, as we were just talking about, for both the Northern Preserve Road intersection and the Southern South Jefferson Drive intersection. In both of those cases, neither of those two intersections met the the traffic volume warrant for installing a turn lane. And then there's a couple other considerations beyond just traffic volumes, including a safety warrant and a roadway context warrant. And those take a little bit more engineering professional judgment, and I kind of go through those point by point in the traffic study also, and ultimately coming to the conclusion that at this time a turn lane is a southbound left turn lane is not warranted at this location. Specifically with regard to the comment about Midland Avenue, we addressed the Midland Avenue connection in the future, in a previous memo, and I didn't include it in this, and I'm sorry for any confusion with that. But that connection with Midland Avenue, there's two things that are going to happen there. There's the potential for traffic from the Dorset Farms community to the east to kind of go through the South Village to access Spear Street. And at the same time, it's going to provide a route for people in the South Village development to go to the east and access Dorset Street. And so we estimated that as about a bit of a wash. There's reasons why you'd want to go to Dorset Street versus Spear Street in either scenario. So just as much as that there's going to be an increased southbound left turn lane, left turning demand on Spear Street, there would also be a reduced southbound left turn demand on Spear Street from the South Village, who would now be turning right from Dorset Street. And the other way we considered traffic volume increase on from this Midland Avenue connection was just as a regional traffic, shortcut, potential. Would people use this as a shortcut? And we estimated a very low traffic volume in the design hour. I think it was about 50 vehicles in the peak hour that might do that. And that's basically looking at the other east-west connections, like Nolan Farms Road nearby, and the traffic volumes we see there. And in all reality, I don't think that this will be a very convenient shortcut. I don't see a lot of people choosing this route to get from the east to the west. It does provide a bit of an access to Allen Road, but overall, you're driving through much more of a community development with stop signs and a roundabout and a more congested traffic area than if you were to take the other options that are available to you at Nolan Farm Road or Barstow Road, I believe, to the south.
Right, did you just say 50 vehicle trips per hour would be using it as a regional cut through?
I'd have to look at the exact number. looked at it this morning. I think it was like 56 in an hour. And that would be traffic that is like cut through traffic, not associated with either Dorset Farms or South Village. Yes.
How does that compare to the total generation of the project?
It's much less than the overall project. I think it's 300 trips in the PM peak hour is estimated from South Village, and 200 and I shouldn't just say that. I can look. I have the report right here, so I can get you that exact number. It was 250 in the current development program in the AM peak hour. So it's much less than what you'd expect. And that's just people that are, thinking they're going to avoid congestion or, maybe looking for a scenic route on their way to work or something that day. Overall, I'd say that it provides people with more access, better mobility connections to get from, various points and provides greater congestion relief on the overall road network by having these connections. So that was in response to the specific comment about the connection to Midland Ave. I know there's also some discussion about, whether or not the 2016 traffic count is appropriate to use at this time. I still think that it is a very relevant traffic observation. The number that was counted that day is higher than numbers that we've seen since then. And if you look at the VTrans Red Book, which collects traffic data from around the state, 2016 was sort of a peak year in traffic volumes regionally, and ever since then, they've been suggesting, recommending a reduction in to adjust that 2016 count downwards to represent current conditions, and that's not including any type of COVID impact or anything like that, obviously. So I think that the 2016 is a relevant traffic data point. I'm sorry, yes?
Corey, could you explain that? I'm sorry to interrupt, but could you explain that further? 2016 is peak because of why?
Just regional traffic observations and behavior. It fluctuates with the economy and, various other things that are going on. So just regionally, what VTrans has counted, 2016 was a bit of a peak. And VTrans offers adjustment factors to represent a 2016 date as current year volumes. And that adjustment factor is right now below 1. So that would be basically reducing the volumes that we count in 2016. So I believe that the count still represents, peak hour conditions. Better than what we'd count. Like if we were to go out today and do it tomorrow, we'd have to do some factors to adjust for, COVID related adjustments.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I guess, unless there's more specific questions, I think that really covered what I was hoping to point out.
Does staff or the board have a question for Corey regarding traffic?
I just will say I did it the other day, and it is no speedway. It is not a route that people will take to for fast access to Shelburne Road or Spear Street and Dorset Street. It's lots of turns and little roundabouts, and yeah. So I agree.
And that's, I'm sure, by design too. So.
Okay, if there are no other questions about traffic, the next item that the staff has pointed out regarding the master plan is we're dealing with coverage, recommending the board require the applicant to provide a calculation of building and lot coverage for each of the involved zoning districts and a calculation of total building and lot coverage, which will occur if the concurrent applications are approved. Staff considers such computation should include the roadways because that's how the coverages were originally computed and have been computed for all of the projects involving the construction of new roadways. Staff notes that there has been some inconsistency in provided coverage calculations in the past and recommends the board allow ample time to review the provided coverages. Ample time for staff to review the provided coverages, I assume. That's what that means. Robin, do you have a reaction to that comment?
Yes, we sent Marla today that the lot coverage, including everything, is 15.77%. With the proposed improvements, and that does include all the roads and coverages. We also asked our consultants, was there any fluff factor in there? And they said yes. There is actually, they build in a fluff factor of 10%. So we are confident that that 15.77% number is accurate. If anything, it's on the large side.
Okay. Any questions about coverages from the board or the staff?
Yeah, Matt, this is Marla. So that's what you're saying is the overall coverage, right? Total lot coverage for all of the South Village PUD?
Yes.
Do you have a computation of coverage by zoning district?
By zoning district?
Mm-hmm.
We only are in one zoning district.
You're in the SEQ NR and SEQ NRP, are you not?
I don't know that. I honestly thought we were fully in one zoning district. Dave may know otherwise.
Dave?
So Marla, Dave Marshall here. Can you explain why it's important to identify the amount of impervious area in the natural resource protection area versus the designated development area?
Absolutely. So the authority of the board under PUD regulations is limited in 3 ways. The board can waive all regulations except for lot coverage by zoning district, parking in the front, and structures less than 5 feet from the property line. So regardless of what your overall coverage is, you know, if you had, say, 10 acres of NRP and 1 acre of NR, and you 100% covered your NR, the board wouldn't be allowed. We need to see that you're below the allowable coverage in the NR for the LDRs in order to approve the project.
Well, I guess the only response I have to that is pretty obvious just by inspection for this project that the way the zoning was actually drawn around the 3 phases of approved footprint area associated with the master plan, that all of the impervious area is located within that particular district. The only thing that might be outside of it would be the causeway that was required by the city to connect phase 3 to Dorset Farms. So that's the only thing that's outside of, I believe, outside, I'll double check as far as that zoning. Actually, that's not even on this particular project, this applicant's property. There was a 60-foot right-of-way offer of dedication from Dorset Farms to the city, and that's where that particular roadway was located.
So are you saying, David, there's only one zoning district that this property is on?
Yes, that the developed portions are located within, yes.
Because the road is now a public road and not part of the.
Actually,
It doesn't matter. The roads are part of the lot coverage for the purpose of the PUD.
They are.
The roads were approved as part of the PUD.
Okay. All we're saying is that the causeway, the roadway that runs out east from Dorset Farms out to, westerly from Dorset Farms to phase 3 was actually located on property not associated with this applicant, but it was on a rights of way, an offer of dedication from Dorset Farms to the city. So when that project was originally approved, they offered that particular property to the city for a future road connection. So all I'm saying is that in an area that is outside of what is authorized as development area or the higher density zoning district for this particular area, I don't even believe that that roadway is located on the applicant's property.
Okay. Well, it's something we should resolve here. I don't know the answer. Why don't we put a pin in that one?
So I guess what I'm confused on is with regard to the allowable density, the lot coverage. Marla, are you saying that the divisor for the computation of that number is actually the area in the particular zoning district as opposed to the entire property, which is inconsistent of how the master plan originally calculated the allowable lot coverage in this area?
Right, there's two computations. One is what the board can, what the board approves and triggers a master plan amendment, and that's your total allowable lot coverage. And the second is what the board is held to under the authority of PUDs, which is no more than the allowable lot coverage on a zoning district by zoning district basis. And you're correct that that was not regulation at the time that this project was approved.
So if we found that the development area within the higher density zoning district was at 80%, where would that put us then?
I think that then we would have to figure out where that puts us. And that's why we want to make sure that we are taking an accounting now to make sure we don't have a problem that we need to figure out a solution to.
Well, I can tell you right now, it's going to be a lot more than 30% within what we were allowed to develop the property within as part of the original master plan approval. So I don't know if there's an end to this means with regard to what you're trying, what you feel the street that we need to go down on this.
Well, I think if you're saying now that you're well over the 30%, at minimum, there's a need to establish a baseline of where you are, because that may affect amendments to this project in the future.
So what I'm confused on is it just doesn't make any sense in regards to where we're going with this. I mean, right now, the original project was based on 30% lot coverage for the entire property, the entire 223 acres. So now that we are reduced down to approximately 60 acres of development area as part of the master plan, you're now saying that we are an illegal project because we've actually developed it in accordance with the master plan?
Well, you haven't shown me any numbers, so I don't know if that's true or not.
Well, I'm saying right now that it's more than 30%. So are you telling me that this is an illegal project?
So
Not
this
in
project,
compliance with the regulations?
if you have more than 30% lot coverage in the SEQ NR, it would not be approved today.
That's fine, but this wasn't approved today. It was approved in 2005 as part of a master plan to specifically avoid these situations.
In that master plan, at the time, what the zoning was it two different zoning areas or one zoning area?
There's one zoning area.
Right, the SEQ was just the SEQ at that time.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
That's my frustration, is that the expectation at the time was that you could not create more than 30% lot coverage within the PUD. The project was designed to be much less than that. We did a best estimate of what that number would be, and it was 13% and change. Over time, it's grown. It's now 15.77%, well below what the 30% that's identified, was identified originally within the master plan and what was allowed. And I'm still frustrated that there's any caps other than what the original zoning allowed, which was 15% building coverage and 30% lot coverage. We're well below those numbers. Now we're running into a situation where you're saying that the project is non-compliant. And I find that fully inconsistent with what the intent of master planning is all about in master plan approvals. So we've done everything with regard to footprints and maintenance of the proposed project development area within the authorized footprint areas. And now we're being thrown this at us. So I guess I'm really confused on where the city is trying to go here.
Well, Dave, I think you're really jumping to conclusions here. The purpose of this comment is to establish a baseline from which to evaluate future approvals. The previous staff comments and decisions on the South Village development have been very remiss as it pertains to coverages. As we've seen with the Aiken Street development, the project has crept up in lot coverages and there's been no accounting done since 2005. So this is an attempt to reestablish where we are and get a grip on things going forward. It's not an attempt to undermine the project or to prevent things from going forward. It's an attempt to understand where we are so we can make informed decisions.
Well, I guess my frustration is you already told us that the Development Review Board doesn't have the ability to waive the lot coverage. So if we acknowledge right now, we'll stipulate that we're over 30% lot coverage within the NR zoning district, that I don't know where we go from here. So what is the point of coming up with that number if it doesn't mean anything in regards to where the original master plan approval set this particular project towards?
Well, that provision has been in place in the regulations since the SEQ individual zoning districts was developed.
I don't have a problem with that, but they weren't developed when this particular project was master planned and approved by the city. So,
and what I'm saying is you're asking me a question I don't know the answer to today.
okay. That's unfortunate.
All right, well, let's put a pin in that right now, Dave. That's my recommendation. And let's move on to staff comment number 4. Regarding land development proposed in an area previously identified as permanent open space. At sketch, the board asked the applicant to demonstrate there was no land development proposed in an area previously identified as permanent open space in the approved master plan. It's a challenging proposition according to staff. Staff recommends the board identify sheet S1.0 as a representative of approved open space. Staff further recommends the board require the applicant to provide a plan showing the bounds of these lots. Staff considers this information is readily available to the applicant, but has not been consolidated onto one sheet.
We accept this as a condition of approval, and we have also submitted tables noting all of the open space in each phase to Marla.
Okay. Thank you, Robin.
You're welcome.
Okay, that's it for staff comments, except for the issue of figuring out whether we count coverages in one zoning area or two. I'm not sure how to rectify that situation right now. Does anyone on the board have a comment regarding that?
I have one more comment, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
We note that on paragraph 3, there's a comment where staff recommends requiring the applicant to provide road geometry. We note this request is not applicable to our application, and further, the information is already available on all the plat plans filed with all previous approvals. And while this wasn't highlighted in red, we are asking this condition to be removed as it's not applicable to this amendment.
Rob, what page are you on?
Above 4, go 2 paragraphs above red comment 4. Oh, too far. There you go. Paragraph C, bottom half.
Can you explain why you don't want to show us your centerline geometry for the purpose of establishing collector roadways?
We believe that all of our plats show all of the geometry that you need, and this would be a huge exercise in civil engineering, and it's not needed or required.
We don't understand the benefit. What is the benefit? These roads are already built. It's all the information's on the plats. And trying to show that on one particular sheet of paper is just not practical based on the fact that this is 220 acres of land area. So we're just trying to understand the importance of this when all that information is already available. If you would like us to attach the plat plans to the back of the S1.0 master plan sheet, we can do that. That's the most practical way to approach. The other thing we wanted to do is just make a correction in regards to the listing of the roadways. Preserve Road was never intended to be a collector roadway, and it shouldn't be identified here. It's specifically supported by the fact that the original review of the project requested that we not necessarily make the roadways wide, but we ensure that at least the rights of way were maintained for those particular collector roadways. And that is, again, starting at the Allen Road intersection with Spear Street, heading east along Allen Road east, and then both turning to the south along South Jefferson, and then turning easterly again along what is now called Midland Avenue. That was one of the two collector roadways. The other was North Jefferson that heads to the north, so as to enable future development to occur north of this particular property and be supported by a collector roadway. So anyways, of that particular note, if this gets reutilized in any particular way, we want to ensure that Preserve Road is not included in that listing going forward. When you look at the plat plan, that particular roadway has a right-of-way width of less than 60 feet, which again supports the original request of the city and Bruce Hoard direct specifically from the Public Works Department with regard to what would be considered to be collector roadways for this particular project.
Okay, thank you for that, Dave. And thank you for bringing that to our attention, Robin.
You're welcome.
Okay. I would like, does the board have any other comments before I ask the public if they would like to comment on the master plan? Okay, hearing none. If there's anyone in the public that would like to comment specifically on this master plan application and the items that we just discussed, please either enter your name into the chat box function or just say your name, and I'll give everyone an opportunity to speak in an orderly fashion. So go ahead at this time and say your name or enter your name into the chat box. I'm pausing now to listen and to look, and not seeing anyone who wishes to speak or to make a comment in the chat box and not hearing anyone. I would then turn to staff and the board to say, we obviously have some decisions to make here. We can continue to hear more, or we can close. What is the pleasure of the board and staff here?
Well, I'm a little concerned that there's this unresolved issue, and I'm wondering what steps could be taken to reach some resolution.
Well, that could be decided in our deliberations, or it could be something that the applicant, the staff works out. I mean, those are two ways to do it. Not sure if there's a third.
Yeah. I'd like to involve the city attorney in our discussion regarding the lot coverage issue.
I think that's a reasonable request. And we can take that in deliberations. Well, I guess what I'm getting at is we can either continue hear the attorney's opinion on whether or not that it's required, or other questions that we might have, then discuss that in deliberations. The question is, do we close? Is there anything that we may not need to hear if we get that opinion? Are there any other decisions that we need more evidence or more testimony before talking about the master plan?
So Matt, if I can just add one piece of information, computing the proposed or permitted amount of impervious area that is all located within the NR district, because again, the zoning regulations that were put into place subsequent to the original South Village approval basically drew everything around the three different phases of footprints. at which point there was 68 acres of that particular area. So if you divide the 68 acres into the total proposed / permitted lot coverage, then you come up with just shy of 52% lot coverage within the NR district. So you can take that with you with regard to at least an acknowledgement from the applicant that we are well beyond 30% in that particular zoning district. Then we'll let the board choose to proceed it one way or the other.
Okay, thank you for that, Dave. Appreciate it.
Hey, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Patrick, go ahead.
if it was tabled, when would we be heard next?
So, yeah, so if we tabled is another word for say continue. Continuing allows us to hear additional testimony. So there's a value in continuing a project, but there's also a delay because once we close, then we have a time period in order to deliberate and issue a decision. So the cautious approach would be to continue at this case, and a lot with that would depend on the scheduling that Marla puts together for us in terms of when we could reconvene regarding the master plan if we decide to continue right now.
Marla, do you have any idea?
Yes, so previously in the summer, the board gave me clear direction to finish what we started before we take on new things. So we have saved room on the February 2nd agenda.
February 2nd, did you say?
What about January 20th?
January 20th?
Yes.
That agenda is full.
Agenda's full. Okay. So I think the most cautious approach we can, given that we have some substantial unanswered questions that we'd like to seek consultation on, whether or not we hear more testimony. If we don't need to hear more testimony, then it's a quick hearing on the 2nd. If we do, it may be longer, but we may get the information we need and be able to deliberate shortly after that. So I would move that we continue master plan application 2101 of South Villages Communities to February 2nd. Is there a second?
I will second that.
Okay, seconded by Don. We'll do a roll call. Brian Sullivan,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Don,
Aye.
Alyssa,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
and John is not present, and Matt Cota chair votes aye, 601. And we've continued MP 2101 of South Village Communities to February 2nd. Okay, moving on to the next agenda item. Don't go anywhere, Robin and Dave and Patrick, which is preliminary and final plat application SD 2102 of South Village Communities LLC to subdivide 4 existing undeveloped lots totaling 23.2 acres into 8 lots ranging from 0.3 acres to 14.1 acres, constructing 22 homes in 11 buildings on lot 11.1, which is 1.2 acres, and 11.2, 1.1 acres, and construct a permanent farm access road and pavilion on lot 11C at 1840 Spear Street. Who is here for the applicant?
Robin Jeffers.
Patrick
Hi,
O'Brien.
Marshall.
Hi, Patrick.
Dave Marshall.
Dave Marshall. Okay, this is preliminary and final plat application, so I ask you all three to raise your right hand and swear to tell the truth under penalty of perjury.
I do.
All three have acknowledged they do, and for anyone listening, this is preliminary and final plat application, which means we are on the final stage of review. Within the last 6 months, we reviewed a sketch plan and provided oral guidance to the applicant. In this hearing, the applicant will describe the project, the board will step through the staff comments and consider whether it's conformance with applicable land development standards. Well, as the chair, I'll invite public comments and help answer any questions that people have. The board may choose to continue this at a later date if there are questions that remain to be examined. If there's information we still need to receive, a future date will be announced prior to concluding the item. And at the end of the stage, the board will vote to whether to close the hearing, and once closed, we'll issue decisions on the application. The decision will be mailed to the applicant and to those who identify themselves as interested persons. And if no appeal of the board's decision is made within 30 days, the decision is final and the applicant may proceed with the project. Okay, so let's talk specifically about SD 2102 now, and tell us a little bit about the project and what has changed, if anything, since sketch. Robin?
The application consists of 11, pretty much what you already read, 11 duplexes, 6 oriented westerly towards a common element, the farm, and the road farm way. 5 duplexes will front on North Jefferson. The 2 southernmost units will front onto Allen Road East. 2 private roads are proposed, an alley for rear loading of all the homes, and a private permanent access road to the farm is also being proposed. Land that's proposed to not be developed is proposed to be divided in 2 parts, one to the farm lot and one to be ceded to the HOA as additional open space to have a grassy play area and a pavilion.
Great. And we last saw this at sketch in September of last year. And so we'll go through staff comments now. The first comment is the applicant is generally meeting the required setbacks with the exception of one or two units on farm way which do not meet the front setback minimum by a couple of feet. Staff recommends the board discuss whether the applicant desires a front setback waiver in these locations, and if so, that they enumerate the specific waiver request. If no such waiver is sought, the board should require the applicant to modify their plans to meet the required setbacks. So which is it? Would you like a waiver? Which ones are?
We would like a waiver similar to has been approved in all the other phases of South Village of a 10-foot front yard setback, a 5-yard side yard setback, and a 5-foot rear setback.
Yeah, but the request is that it be enumerated to the specific where the locations are. Or are you just asking for a blanket waiver?
We're asking for a blanket waiver.
Okay. Is there a Marla? Is there a reason why we should focus on just the few units that are not within the setback, or as opposed to issuing a blanket waiver?
Why don't we pull up the proposed development plan and consider that question? That is a good question.
Is the plan that you want to show, Marla?
No, would you show the 5th sheet in the plan file? I don't know what page it's going to be in the file that you're in. But it's a 5th.
In the plan file. Okay, hold on a second. Let me stop sharing.
Yeah, so it looks like it'll be 1 page past your preview there.
While you're looking,
Because I think that once we pull this up, it'll be useful for the rest of the discussion too.
Okay. Sounds good.
While you're looking, I just wanted to point out that all the lots in South Village do have approvals matching these same setbacks.
And they have waivers?
They all have 10-foot, 5-foot, 5-foot waivers.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So it is the 5th page, you say?
Yep.
That it?
One more, I guess. Oh, that was 2 more. Go back 1. There you go. All right, so the setbacks as shown are pretty close to 20 feet. Some of them are 18. And Robin's asking for 10 across the board. I just wanted to show this, just give you a feel for what that might look like and see if anybody had any concerns. I don't, but it's not my decision.
Wait.
So these are all shown to be 20, but if you grant a 10-foot setback waiver, they may not, you know, they may squish them out a little bit, and that would be, since they've indicated that these are likeness only or whatever the call out was. It wouldn't be necessarily these exact locations. They might be squished out closer to the roads.
Which would match the existing homes.
Okay, so right now, we have a blanket 5-foot setback waiver for the existing homes.
10-foot front setback, 5-foot side, 5-foot rear.
And where we're off by 1 or 2 feet, this is where setback is 10 feet.
No, as shown, this lot doesn't have a waiver. So as shown, they're 18 to 20 feet setback from the front lot line.
This is Dawn. If all the other property, single family homes and other duplexes in South Village have that waiver for a setback, I don't know why we wouldn't allow these homes in this proposal to have a similar setback.
Any other comments from the board regarding the waiver request?
I don't really have much of an issue with the waiver request, but I guess I'd almost prefer to be approving a plan rather than a generic sort of concept. And, you know, we look at this and they ask for a 10-foot blanket waiver, which I understand the rest of the project has, you know, and then they all get built, pushed out, you know, so that they're tight up against the street. Why not just show it that way? And that's what we approve.
Yeah, that makes sense to me, Mark.
The other question I have for the applicant is this a typical sort of style that's reminiscent throughout in other parts of the project with this back alley and the parking, you know, behind the units and the project fronting? I know you have the alleys, but I guess my question is, these look like double or triple wide driveways, not, you know, double stacked driveways for a 1-car garage. It just looks like a lot of asphalt.
Yeah, you weren't here when we went over this.
Yeah, I know I wasn't.
I don't think, Mark. So
No.
each of the garages are approximately 1.5 widths wide.
Okay.
And the driveways are 4-car widths wide so that there's adequate room for parking for a duplex.
What is required for a duplex? Or no, maybe not required, but what are you guys trying to achieve?
We're trying to achieve 4 cars in the driveway, 2 cars for each unit.
But if you have a parking garage, if you have a 1-car garage and a spot behind it, but you're trying to park 4, do these have do these have garages?
They have a garage, but it's not a very big garage. And in our experience, homes with a 1-car garage, it generally is more full of stuff more often than a car.
I understand that. Okay. Can I ask the board, did anyone have any concerns at sketch on this? It just seems like a lot of driveway for duplexes.
Mark, just to interject, I got a very similar comment from the DPW director on this. And Delilah, if you can pull up the supplemental image, he said it felt like a lot of pavement, and I explained to him Robin's testimony, and he sent me this image and said, what about something like this? So I just wanted to share that.
Okay.
The supplemental DPW comments?
Yep.
Okay.
So, Mark, if I may, we keep in mind that these are the affordable units. So, so they're smaller, and I think that if it was a normal sized garage, it wouldn't look so, the driveway wouldn't look so bad.
But it still would, because you're talking about a 4-car wide driveway. You know, you're going to be parking 4 cars wide in each one of those spaces. It feels more like a parking lot than private driveways, you know, with a lot of landscaping.
All of the duplexes approved in phase 2 and phase 3 all have the same driveway. The difference would be that they're front loaded as opposed to rear loaded. And in phase 1, all the triplexes also have a quad loaded driveway. And on the center unit, there's a double loaded driveway.
Okay. But those also had a sort of like a median strip between them.
They
that
do
broke
not.
up the asphalt.
In the triplexes, there's a median strip between one of the 3 units, but not between 2. And all of the front loading, there is nothing. It's just wide asphalt.
Okay. Now, I know we said Patrick, you said this is the affordable section, but are all of them affordable or 50% of them affordable?
50%.
Okay, so you've got 50% affordable, but 50% are market rate. Why don't you just make the parking, the garages normal size for a single car so that you can use it as an actual parking garage, an actual parking space, and then just have a single bay behind it. So you got 2 cars per unit.
The economics. So these are affordable units, so we need to keep the construction costs down in order to make this work.
We're aiming to have the market rates be a comparable unit.
Okay. Okay, I mean, I'm not going to be the stopping point, especially since it's the back of the project. It just feels like a lot of asphalt and it's out of scale with the rest of the development.
I think if the landscape drawings were shown, it's very much softened and it doesn't look the way that it looks from this perspective.
Okay.
I don't
I'm
know.
the only one that has an issue with it.
Before I go, do you want me to go landscape or do you want to discuss the image, the DPW image and?
I'd like you to show the landscape for Mark's benefit.
I got the landscape up on my screen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any comments on the image on the left that DPW sent?
That's the one where you have the center median.
That's not in South Village.
No, that was a suggestion of what maybe it could be.
Right. All of ours are flush together.
I doubt you have the space between your parking garage. Your garage looks like the 2 single-car garages looks like it's probably combined the width of a standard 2-car garage.
I think we gave them each an extra 4 feet, a car plus 4 feet. It's planned to hold a car. It's planned so that it could hold a car and your garage, your trash toters.
Right.
In likelihood, it will hold your kayaks and your trash toters and your canoe and your bikes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, if you did that if you did the extra 4 feet on the inside, you could certainly do what DPW is suggesting and having each of those driveways be broken up a little bit.
The other factor is giving room for people to park. And if we put the island in the middle, we just have to widen it out more.
Right, there couldn't be any less asphalt. It would just be more spread out.
So you're basically providing 3 parking spaces per unit. I know you're saying people aren't going to use the garages, but you're providing a parking garage. And in any other application, you would argue you could be using that as an actual parking space. Here you're saying, yes, I'd put a parking space, but we're not counting it. So we're providing 2 paved spaces outside of the unit per unit.
That's correct. And there is very little other parking in South Village. There is on-street parking, but parking continues to be a challenge. And the feedback we received at Sketch from the community was that parking was a concern and they wanted to be sure that it was addressed.
Okay, well, like I said, if I'm the only one that has an issue with it, I'll kind of stop talking. It's just, I just see it as, you know, typically we look at, you know, providing two spaces per unit, and that's sort of semi-typical. Now we're providing 3 spaces because you're saying one of the spaces is basically a storage space, not an actual parking space.
I am.
Okay.
The second item, staff note on this application, in terms of coverage, the applicant is proposing a maximum building coverage on the involved lots, 25.5%, the maximum lot coverage of 42.9%. This occurs on lot 11.1, maximum allowable building lot coverage. Without a waiver is 15%, 30% respectively. Lot 11.2 is also proposed for building and lot coverage requiring a waiver. Staff recommends the board, taking into consideration consistency with the remainder of phase 1, determine affirmatively whether to grant building and overall coverage waivers for these lots.
We are requesting approval of the building coverage as presented, and we offer that we are ceding the open space to the farm and the HOA. And if retained, the lot coverage would present quite differently. The dense design is in keeping with the traditional neighborhood design of South Village overall, where homes are densely located with common shared spaces adjacent. And we are formally requesting no waiver for the increased lot coverage.
Okay, thank you. Are there any comments from the board or staff about this request? Okay. Question number 3, or agenda, or staff note number 3, project is bounded by the farm to the north, wetlands to the west, roadway to the south and east. No landscaping or fencing is proposed to delineate the wetland buffer. Staff recommends that the board require the applicant to propose a landscaping boundary at the edge of the wetland buffer outside of the operating farm, and to further establish an area of buffer and wetland as an area left to revegetate naturally with provisions for removal of invasive species. Staff considers this must be done prior to closing the hearing, cannot be a condition of approval. Is there a plan to delineate the wetland buffer? Robin?
We have a plan. I was going to ask if the image could be brought up of what was submitted of the wetland buffers. It's C2 point something.
In the supplemental stuff that was sent today?
No, it was sent
No.
last
It's in the
week.
package. Yeah, it's in
Okay.
the plan package.
There it is.
Sheet 0.4, it's very colorful.
There it is.
There you go.
Whoa. Is it possible for me to use a cursor?
If you go up to where it says drawing tools, you can grab a little highlighter or a little glowing ball and move it around.
Drawing tools. Where I see a paintbrush?
At the top, no, at
Yeah.
the
No,
top,
the
there's
paintbrush.
it says
It
remote.
looks different on her when she's not a presenter, Delilah. The paintbrush is what you want.
Oh, yeah, paintbrush.
Okay, I'd like to read the response that we created first, and then I'd be happy to take out the paintbrush and illustrate our proposal. But the recommendation as written would eliminate the grassy play area planned and proposed for this area. The area is and will remain relatively flat. It's always been mowed and cut regularly. The Neighborhood Landscape Committee and the HOA Board and the South Village Land Stewardship Board were also consulted. All were in favor of the pavilion and the grassy play area. We are supportive of delineating the wetland proper, but not the buffers with split rail fencing. And I can show you that with the paint in the upper northwest corner. We would not want to include the elbow and the leg that's on that southern boundary, which has been nothing more than a man-made ditch, and it's never been a natural feature. And the request, we recommend that the buffers be allowed to be continued to be mowed and made use of as a recreational amenity. We have submitted letters from our wetland consultant and a sign off from the State Agency of Natural Resources and their wetland consultant that the wetland is of no value. Leaving the buffers to vegetate naturally, as is suggested in the staff notes, would eliminate the play space and be detrimental to the farm. Cutting has been necessary for weed control on the farm, and continuing to have a viable farmland is a necessity to us. So now I'm gonna grab my little highlighter. This is cool. There's an existing fence proposed that runs right along here. And we proposed that we would put a fence right around here. That would designate this area of the buffer. It would leave the pavilion in place. It would leave the grassy play area, which would be flat. What staff is suggesting is that the line be here, which would in effect, remove all of the play area that we had planned for. So we wanted to ask for support for this plan.
Okay. Board, what do you think? John, Brian, Melissa, Jim?
I guess, Marla, would you just briefly summarize your objection to this?
So the city's wetland regulations allow certain limited uses in the wetlands and wetland buffers. And South Village was sort of founded on this principle of natural resource protection. And I'm trying to pull up a couple things as I talk. So the wetland protection standards of 12.02 allow encroachments that do not adversely affect the ability of the property to store, carry floodwaters, to reduce sedimentation, or to affect functions and values. The DRB, is there a specific thing about allowable impacts? Like there is not any. There used to be. And then I was going to pull up South Village's design. They had this whole thing, and Robin, you can probably speak much more eloquently to this than I can, but about preservation of open spaces, and it's part of your HOA documents, is it not, to preserve open spaces? Have I misunderstood that?
The 116 plus acres we call the preserve. That's actually how we name it. We have extensive wetlands that are valuable wetlands that we have preserved. We are actively have them in habitat restoration. And we consider those high value wetlands. And yes, that is key to our being a conservation community.
So does that have a specific geographic boundary?
Pardon?
So does the preserves have a specific geographic boundary associated with it?
Yes, it's all the land to the east of North Jefferson and South Jefferson Road.
Oh, that way, okay.
And then it goes into nowhere.
The Great Swamp.
The Great Swamp for miles and miles. This particular area has never had any value. It has always been mowed. The section we're ceding to the farm will continue to be mowed. It can be mowed in agricultural use, and it will be.
And the soccer field that was once approved and soon going to be reproposed will need to impact the buffer zones if that's going to be approved.
Okay.
It's a great opportunity for a recreational amenity. That's how we presented it at Sketch, and we thought we had full support for that. We're pretty surprised about these comments.
The important thing to remember is that this has been continually maintained. It's been farmed. There's been sunflowers growing out there recently. This is nothing but a lawn that gets wet in the spring.
I would
Okay,
also
thank
add-
you for that, Patrick.
I would add on this drawing the, where you have the gold on the bottom and you can see the rec path underneath it. The improvements in the subbase for that rec path were all already installed when Allen Road East was installed a long time ago. Those impacts have already happened.
So the other irony here is that when South Village was approved, we went through the process of working with the state and the federal wildlife agencies and getting all of the applicable wetland permits to fill. The irony now is that they do not, the state does not care to have jurisdiction over class 3 wetlands like this, and the city does. So it's been a complete flip.
Mr. Chair, Dave Marshall here. I just wanted to provide a little bit more information with regard to this wetland. There is a narrow band that extends out from the westerly side of the main body of the wetland, and then southerly, and then the southeasterly, and then easterly. That's actually a farm ditch or a ditch put in place by the original farmer for the property, and we gas that was there to dewater the wetland. That ditch actually extends furtherly easterly through the proposed development area. That particular area was not identified as a wetland because the slopes of the land were such that no water would sit in the bottom of the ditch. But in this upper section, which sits on the very highest point of the landform of South Village, that is an area that the farmer didn't do a very good job of putting some slope on, and hence wetland vegetation did establish itself in the bottom of the ditch. But nonetheless, it's a ditch that would allow any farming activity, or if it was a man-made ditch, that we could go and maintain the ditch. So it's one area that we didn't feel had a high amount of value as far as trying to put fences around that particular one. But if we were going to preserve an area, it would be the main body of that particular class 3 wetland as part of the management of this area, preservation of what originally Mother Nature said was a wet area. And as such, it would still enable the land uses that historically or in the past 15 years have been utilizing this particular area, but it still achieves some of the intent of putting up fencing and trying to protect the wetland. In many of these cases, when we're putting up fencing, it's intended to keep single-family lot owners from dumping their stuff in the wetland. And we really don't have that situation here, where this is an open space area that is intended for passive and active recreational use. So those are all the thoughts as far as the background and how we'd like the board to think about that going forward.
Okay, thank you for that, Dave. So no other questions about the wetland delineation. I'd move on to staff comment number 4.
Oh, wait, Matt, it's Brian. I want to make sure I understand this. So it's a class 3 wetland, which is not regulated by the state. But the city of South Burlington has a buffer requirement, if I understand correctly. I guess this is a question for Marla. Do we have any standards to guide us on how we go about waiving that buffer, or what is that thought process like?
Yes, so 12.02E are the standards for wetland protection. The board may allow encroachment into class 3 wetlands and wetland buffers upon finding the project's overall development, EPSC, stormwater treatment, revisions for stream buffering, and landscape plan achieve the following standards. And the standards are: the encroachment will not adversely affect the ability of the property to carry or store floodwater adequately. The encroachment will not adversely affect the ability of the proposed stormwater treatment system to reduce sedimentation. And the impact of the encroachment on the specific wetland functions and values of the wetland is minimized and or offset by appropriate landscaping, stormwater treatments, stream buffering, and or other mitigation measures. So it's just our standard 3 wetland protection standards.
Okay, and could I ask that the applicant address those standards?
Robin, if I'm not remiss, there was a report submitted by the wetland ecologist to that effect as far as addressing those particular standards.
That's correct.
There was a letter submitted by Patty Swift Green, the wetland consultant, and one from Tina Heath at the state, and each consider that this wetland has no value. And then to add, it has been farmed and it has been continually mowed, and an extensive portion of it is going to be ceded to the farm. It will continue to be mowed and cut in agricultural use.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, Brian or anyone else? Okay, moving on to staff comment number 4, which is staff recommends the board require the applicant to modify the plans to show that the recreation path will be connected, including any required grading and landscaping. It appears this project proposes to complete the remaining segment of the recreation path, although a small portion of the path at the western edge is beyond the edge of the plan. Is that correct, Robin, Dave?
That is correct. We only showed the improvements for lot 4. Indeed, the path does go all the way to the left to a lot 11A, where it is intended to be completed. It's already 3/4 complete on 11A, so there's only a small section left. It goes.
And you can revise the plan to show that.
Yes.
Great.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yes, we will.
Thank you. Okay.
We would also
regarding-
just support a condition that articulates that it needs to be connected.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Regarding water supply and wastewater, staff considers the applicant must obtain preliminary water and wastewater allocation for the proposed 22 units prior to final plat approval. Staff recommends the board continue the hearing until such times allocations are obtained.
The wastewater applications were submitted and obtained last week. Justin Rabidou signed off on them. Staff have copies. Water was also applied for. And we object to continuing the hearing just for water, but we are good with a condition that prior to any zoning permit being applied for, water allocation must be obtained.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Appreciate the update. Staff comment number 6 regarding property line on Allen East Road and North Jefferson Road is located within the proposed 10-foot wide recreation by about a foot. Staff considers the recreation path should not be located within private property. Recommends the board direct the applicant to move it to be wholly within the right of way. As a packet publication, the Director of Public Works has not reviewed the plan. Staff anticipates they'll have an update. Do we have an update?
Sorry, I was just taking notes on what Robin just said about watering wastewater. We're on the DPW one.
Yeah, there's the Department of Public Works.
Oh, just the comment that I talked about at the
path.
beginning. Recreation path?
The property line on Allen Road is located within
out
the
of
proposed
private.
10-foot wide.
Oh, yes, so that was already with, that comment was already in coordination with DPW director. So that is considered, so the recommendation above comment number 6 is locate the recreation path entirely within the right of way. And then comment number 6 about DPW comments, the only additional comment he had was what we talked about earlier with the impervious, the wide expansive impervious.
Oh, I see. I see. I'm sorry. I took that out of order or out of context. Great. Thank you.
Matt, Dave Marshall here. We have revised the plans and we'll submit them to staff to reflect the requested change of the recreation path wholly within the rights of way.
Okay. Item number 7, staff recommends the board request the Recreation and Park Committee feedback on the proposed design of the, we're talking about the open space, the parks and design development. I thought I saw Kathy Franks on. Catherine Frank is on. Catherine, is this a okay time to ask you if you've reviewed, if your committee has looked at the parks?
So Kathy Frank's on the Bike and Ped Committee.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry, Kathy.
So
Have you looked at the bike path? Do we have the Rec and Park Committee? Have they looked at this? Have they discussed it? Do you have any feedback to share?
To be honest, Matt, I sent it to the staff coordinator and I didn't get any feedback, so I probably should have poked them again on that, but I didn't. So I don't know if they took a look at it.
may I comment
Robin,
on
have you talked to them?
No, in fact, this came up at Sketch, that it was articulated, and I remember John Wilking, I'm not saying that right, specifically addressing this, that if Parks and Rec had anything to say, they should have said it at Sketch, and honestly, we anticipated that as well. At Sketch, we committed to bringing this to the neighborhood, to the HOA and the stewardship board, who are responsible for all the open land. And they were all on board. Our farmers were also consulted. And it was our understanding that if there was to have been discussion, that it would have happened back at Sketch. So we don't and as this is a private amenity, we don't understand why it's going out to the city community.
Okay.
The board has the
Thank you for that
authority
comment,
to
Kelly.
ask committees to review things that they happen to be experts on behalf.
But shouldn't that have happened at Sketch?
Board has the
Well,
authority to
it
ask
could
for that
happen.
at any
It could
time.
happen tonight. It could happen prior to tonight. We want to make sure that we, as a board, give our fellow committees an opportunity to weigh in and not deny them that chance. That's a commitment we've made, have made. And if we've given them that chance and they have no comment or prefer not to comment, that's certainly, we can't force them to make a comment if they have no opinion. So we'll root that one to ground. But yes, I do remember the discussion at Sketch, asking them what their thoughts were on having this amenity, because they are experts in many, or they do spend a lot of their time focusing on different amenities in the city, even if they're privately held. And we
Okay.
appreciate their input. So that's the background there.
Thank you.
Number 8, the recreation path on Allen Road in North Jefferson Road. Wait, okay, no, this is different. The recreation path on, this is item number 8, on page 10. The recreation path on Allen Road East and North Jefferson Road is proposed to be approximately 1 foot in the development lots, the remainder in the public right of way. The grass strip between the recreation path and the street is 7.5 feet. Staff is coordinated with the Director of Public Works, who supports reducing the grass strip by 1 foot in order to locate the recreation path entirely within the right of way. Staff recommends the board require the applicant to make this change. The reason I paused is this different than the 1 foot that's in the right of way that was in the staff comment number 6?
No, I apologize, Matt. It made it in there twice.
Okay. What do they call
Oh,
it?
do we get credit for doing twice as much work?
Yes.
So we're fixing that. We're still fixing that, right?
Yes, we
Dave?
are. That's
Stage
correct.
of it all over again.
Yes.
Okay, let's talk trees. City arborist doesn't recommend the Japanese tree lilacs or the crab apples because of clearance issues. You have a response to the city arborist recommendation, and if you have a plan to change these.
We had our landscapes revised last week per Craig's comments, and they were submitted last week for his approval. Staff has received these. We believe the condition is met. We also asked that it be shared with Craig that the sidewalk and the road would be private, because it appears Craig was not advised of that. His comments had pertained a lot to do with public. But we believe we're complete with this condition. Yep. We're also happy with the condition of approval, that the plans meet the approval of the city arborist.
All right. Great. Thank you for that, Rob.
May I ask,
Number
did
10.
he see
Go ahead.
the revised plans?
I do not know. Marla, do you know?
No, not
Do you know if the city arborist has seen the revised tree selections?
No, the revisions have not made it around yet because they were submitted after staff comments went out. So we don't want to send things around unless the board is ready to send them around.
Okay, moving on to lighting. Lighting is only proposed at the intersections of the alley with Allen Road East and North Jefferson Road with Preserve Road. The poles are proposed to be 12 feet high, in keeping with emphasizing the farm road as the front of the homes and the alley is the rear. Staff recommends the board require the applicant to add lighting at the intersection of the farm road with Allen Road East. Robin, what's your response to that comment?
We agreed, and we had our lighting plans also revised last week and submitted them last week to staff.
Okay, thank you for that. I sketched the board directed the applicant to make the farm access road in front of the homes, which required the emphasizing the road over the alley. Staff recommends the board discuss whether the applicant has successfully made it apparent that the homes on a lot 11.1 face the access road rather than the alley, and consider whether to require the applicant to pave the portion of the farm access road adjacent to a lot 11.1. See also recommendation pertaining to lighting issues above. I feel like we talked about this in sketch. Robin, do you have a response?
Sure. All the homes are rear load, which the drawings depict, with the front porches and the walks in the front and the garages in the rear. We are fine with a condition that says all units shall be rear loaded on lots 11.1 and 11.2, if that it makes things more clear for folks. We did not hear any questions at sketch or here actually that validated that you couldn't tell that those were rear loaded with fronts that were facing the common elements in the road.
No, my comment about sketch, sorry, Robin, to interrupt, was that I thought we talked about not paving the road, the farm road.
Oh, you want to talk about paving? The farm road is currently, sorry, I thought we were on the rear load garages.
Well, no, we are. It's both in that comment, but go ahead.
I'll keep going. The farm road is currently unpaved and we see no reason to pave the road. It was intended to be a farm road and have a natural road look and feel. It's generally only used seasonally, has very low traffic, and saving the ongoing expense of repaving makes the most sense financially for the farm.
Yeah, don't pave the farm road, in my opinion. Okay, let's talk about elevation. Staff notes provision of elevations of proposed structures is a requirement in PUD applications. The applicant is effectively requesting a waiver of this application requirement. Staff recommends that if the board accept the sample elevations, which we have, that they specifically call out elements which are required to create street-facing orientation. For example, doors should face the street. Porches with sloped roofs should be used. Multiple fenestrations must be present on each story for each unit and stabilized, not grass. Walkways should extend from each door to the sidewalk. So when we say specifically call out elements, are we talking about adding that as conditions? Or are we just asking them to describe it in the narrative?
So normally an applicant is required to submit elevations. The board, the applicant can always ask for a waiver of an application requirement. It doesn't happen very often. Normally we get applications that contain all the required elements, but in this case they made a request so as to save costs of preparing the application and support the affordable. Be able to put more money towards the homes themselves, which is, a reasonable request. So if the board is going to say, okay, we accept this sample image in lieu of elevations, since, the applicant has testified that they're not proposing to construct these exact homes, what about these homes is it that the board is saying, yes, this is what we are approving you to build? So those would be specific conditions that referencing what about these homes is approved.
Can I speak to this? Go ahead.
What's that? Go ahead.
I just wanted to add that we submitted, and I see them here on the sign in the viewer, that our design review standards South Village has very strict design review standards that have been adopted into all approvals for phase 2 and phase 3, and we support having them apply to this lot 11 and actually the lot 48 as conditions of approval. The standards are very precise regarding front entries and front walks and where they go and their orientation and fenestration. They're incredibly well defined. They were largely worked out with staff at the time that they were created, and they're more extensive than any of the call outs that Marla has brought up. And on the 48N, which we'll get to, staff has actually noted that the South Village design standards are acceptable in lieu of elevations for lot 48N. So we would like to request that same consideration for lot 11.
Okay. Mark, what do you see here in the samples in terms of seeing if it meets the goals?
Stuff I've seen in the samples, it meets the goals. I mean, the site plan layout, the way it's sort of, you know, laid out is a traditional rear loaded front, you know, door design. You know, I think they would have to, and I mean, I'm not trying to speak naively, but I think they would have to struggle not to have it come off as front loaded, you know, with the proper design as they depicted in that one sample photograph, which is typical for out there. So, you know, I think seeing one elevation would probably be fine, but I'm comfortable that it's going to be, you know, designed and built as narrative and as I see it in the site plan.
Right. And the 13th comment is recommendation that the applicant provide front and side elevations for the homes which face south to ensure this criterion is met.
I think that's fine. I mean, you know, trust but verify.
Well, we wanted to put forth that we'd be amenable to a condition that says that the units directly alongside Allen Road East will front on Allen Road East, and our design review standards really handle all the rest. They talk about how wide the front porch has to be and how wide the sidewalk has to be, and
yeah,
yada yada.
No, I remember all those. I'm fine with that condition.
I'm fine with that condition also because it's obvious those units are going to front on Allen Road East, the way they're, you know, it's laid out in logic.
Okay, that was the 13th staff comment. That's all we have for right now. This is a good opportunity for anyone listening at home to offer a public comment. If you have a public comment regarding SD 2102, you can either enter your name in the chat box, enter your comment in the chat box, or just say your name and I'll call on you. I'm going to pause now and listen and look.
Matt, I have one more comment.
Yep. Okay. Let me just make sure there's no public comments out there, and then we'll return to you. We'll let you go. I don't see anyone that wants to make a public comment in the chat box. I don't hear anyone. So I will ask the applicant if they have any questions for the board or comments. Go ahead, Robin.
We do the next section, the affordable housing density bonus. Staff has made a recommendation that the board make a condition about square footage when zoning permits are drawn. And we disagree with it. The original statement that was made during the miscellaneous application for the affordable plan reads that the floor area of affordable units on lot 48N and lot 11 shall be no less than the market rate units of the same type on lot 11 and 48N. And we think that this language is enough to have compliance. We disagree with the statement that it's made. We read this example as saying, for example, every 1,500 square foot market rate, there needs to be a 1,500 square foot affordable unit, and that we need to continue in that same balance. For example, if there was a 1,600 square foot market, there needs to be a matching 600 square foot affordable and so on. We want the flexibility to be able to have 2 and 3 bedroom units. We recognize that there has to be a match in the affordable and in the market, that there have to be comparables. And we're currently under obligations to provide a square feet of every unit that we build to zoning when we apply for a zoning permit. This is an overarching condition from phase 3. This will not change for this phase. This will be included, and we feel that this vehicle is working. Further,
can I clarify that? So Robin, so the objection to what are the square footage of the first zoning permit issued on lot 11, if market rate shall be the maximum size of all market rate units and the minimum size of all affordable units. The challenge that as you see with that condition is what? Can you summarize that for me?
the challenge is for our very first building permit, it establishes a flat rate or a flat size. And our understanding is that you have to have matching sizes. You have to have comparable affordables and comparable market, but not that you're going to pick one flat square foot size and it's going to apply to every unit. That doesn't allow for any flexibility between 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom units.
So go ahead, Mark.
I mean, I agree with Robin on that, but I think there has to be some way of, accountability to show that there's a match. Because, you are sort of saying that, I agree that that's sort of saying that whatever your first permit is what the rest of them are going to be. And it doesn't allow for sort of some 2, some 3, but I do see that we do need to have some accountability to show that if you submit for 5, 3-bedroom market rates, you're not submitting for, 5 or 6 2-bedroom affordable. It has to be a balanced approach, and there has to be some way of showing that and proving it.
Right, and that's where I'm trying to describe that we're already obligated to give Delilah a spreadsheet with every zoning application, whether it's from a preferred builder or from us, that says what we're applying for, the address, the unit, and its square footage. And on that spreadsheet, it's further delineated already which units are affordable, which units are not, which are the lot 11 units, which are the lot 48 and units. There's no mystery. We're not trying to hide anything or trick anybody.
No. So I guess I would ask Matt or, Marla or Delilah, what precursor to this request for this condition, which does seem to put a lot less flexibility and a lot more rigidity on, the applications and the zoning permits going forward.
So MS 2002A has a condition that the floor area of as defined herein, which is in fact different from the floor area in the LDRs, of affordable units on lot 11 shall be no less than that of market rate units of the same type on lots 11 and 48N. So if you build like you were saying, if you build 3 bedrooms for all of your market rate and 2 bedrooms for all of your affordable, you're never going to meet that condition. At sketch.
That's not what I was saying.
And
I was saying
MS 20, or sorry.
Hold on, sorry. I don't hear the answer. Go ahead, Marla.
At sketch and at the hearings, of which there were many for the, as the MS 1903, the applicant testified that these units would be identical to one another. So this is consistent with that testimony.
We said affordable would be the same as comparable market, and we're saying the same thing. I'm not saying that we're going to have a 3-bedroom market and 3-bedroom affordable. I'm saying I want to be able to have a 2-bedroom affordable and a 2-bedroom market and a 3-bedroom market and a 3-bedroom affordable. We totally get that. We totally get that we have to go 1 by 1 or 2 by 2, however you want to. We get that, and we're in agreement with it. We're just not in agreement with flat rate sizing.
So Matt, I think I see where this, I guess I'd call it a breakdown of communication is, that Marla, you took that Robin said that they're going to be identical units across the board. And that statement says that, okay, whatever your first zoning permit is, that's your minimum for the affordable so that they match. But if Robin's saying there's going to be some 2 and some 3, we have to have an equal number and equal size of each in market and affordable.
Right.
So
And
Mark,
that,
Dave
to me,
Marshall
is the
here.
intent of the code.
Go ahead, Dave.
Oh, I'm sorry. One thing we talked about how to ensure that happens is we actually come in with 2 applications at the same time, one for the market rate and one for affordable. That allows staff to recognize that they are the same as far as characterization. And then that would allow for them to be built in a manner consistent where we don't go too far in one direction and forget about the affordable. So we were just trying to find checks and balances that would work through this particular system with the understanding that the intent is to make sure that the affordable units are not left behind and that whatever is produced as far as a market rate, that we also have the same affordable unit. And we were just looking for tools on ultimately how to do that, but still provide the same flexibility in regards to characterization of the units. Well, we don't want to have 22 units that all look the same. We would love to have some variability. That's what neighborhoods typically have. And we're just wanting to make sure we didn't get caught in a corner where if we literally took the language out of the staff report, we would be basically putting ourselves in a corner with the first application on what the character of everything else would need to be. So I think we're all headed in the right direction. We just want to make sure that the tools are there to ensure that all parties are comfortable with how we can achieve the goal.
Yeah, and I think you're right to characterize it that, Dave. We're not trying to say you have to build a 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom and you choose it the first go around. What we want to ensure is that you don't build all the market rates first and then leave the affordables later. And if we had a condition that achieved what you described with a marching 2x2, I'd happily sign off to that and not hold you to having all of the units built as per the first zoning
That
permit.
condition already exists in MS 1903, that they have to build 1-for-1 on lot 48N and lot 11.
Say that again. I'm sorry, Marla.
The condition of MS 1903 is that they have to build 1 affordable for every market rate on lot 11 and 48N.
Right. So they have to go 2x2. The question is they're required to do that, and we are giving them the flexibility to vary, whether it's a 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom. But they've got to match as they come in, and they've got to be built, and the permits have to be pulled at the same time.
I'm just hypothesizing here. So if they come in pairs, and say the first pair is 1,800 square feet each, one 1,800 square foot market rate and one 1,800 square foot affordable. And then the next pair is 1,500, and then the next pair is 1,200, and then the next pair is 1,000, and then the next pair is 800. Is that a problem?
Is that a problem
Is that a problem with compliance with the board's decision that these must be indistinguishable from market rate units? That was a big discussion in MS 1903, that these units all be, that you can't point at them and say, this is where the affordable housing is.
I don't.
Go ahead, Mark.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I don't see that as a problem because you're not building 6 1,800 square foot market rates on one side of the street and 6 800 square foot affordable housing on the other side of the street. You're basically doing a mix of size and density, some 18, some 15, some 12, some 800 square feet, but it's an equal mix of both market and affordable. So it's not like you're going to look at the 800 square foot affordable and say, that's the affordable house because you have an 800 square foot market rate, either side by side or, adjacent or whatever, I think the the spirit of the law is being met, and I think the intent of the law is being met as well with doing matching 1-for-1.
Yes,
With
I
that.
understand why Marla brought it up now.
Yes, I
It's
agree.
clarified in my mind, but I don't have a problem as long as it's 1-for-1 and it's done in a way that we achieve the affordable housing units in the same schedule and we're not leaving it for the end. And I think it complies with the statute, with our land development regulations. But if anyone else has a different thought, please say it now.
No, I don't have a different thought, Matt, and since it was an issue that I felt strongly about, I'm glad to see that it's being addressed here. And yes, I think that the key here is parity. And as long as there's parity between the two types of housing, I think we're okay.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you. for
Okay,
that.
so I've asked for public comment. I did not hear any. Listening one more time. So now we have to make a decision whether to continue this to hear more testimony or to close it because we've heard everything that we need to hear. What is the thought of the staff and the board regarding that question?
On this one, what additional information do we feel we sort of need? Based on all the discussions, we said we would kind of put a pin in it during this meeting.
I believe all the pins were on the previous application.
Okay.
Right. We didn't have any pins.
Okay.
My sense,
No pins and needles.
my sense, Mark, is that there's a lot to deliberate on. I know the board sometimes deliberates and then wants to ask additional questions. It needn't delay anything to have that additional caution built in, but I would advise a deliberation before closing, just to make sure that we're not missing something here.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea, Marla. But this,
So we may
let's
just open the meeting and close it. Okay.
Yeah, which is just a very perfunctory, we've done these before, but the status of the master plan shouldn't affect this, correct? Like there's unanswered questions in the master plan. That's another reason to keep this, to continue this. All right, in my opinion, I think we should continue, but for the purpose of having a deliberation and determining whether or not more testimony is required. Otherwise, we close it, we deliberate, and then we have to make the decision to open it back up, which I would prefer not to do. The applicant may not like that solution, but I think this is the best way forward, that we can then hold a deliberation to discuss whether we need any more information, come to some sort of conclusion, and then if we need to open it back up or not open it back up, if we need to then have a further discussion to ask for more testimony, we can, and if not, we can simply close it and begin the clock on issuing a final decision. Any other questions for the board?
Yes, could this be the January meeting?
I don't know, Marla, can this be the January meeting?
No, we should keep them all together. And like I said, the January 20th meeting is full.
Okay, so I move that we continue SD 2102 of 1840 Spear Street, South Village, to February 2nd. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, seconded by Don. Roll call. Brian?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
Alyssa?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
John is not present, and Matt Cota votes aye, 601, and we will deliberate and continue on February 2nd. We'll discuss, and then just continue on February 2nd. Okay, next item on the, thank you very much. Next item on the agenda, don't go anywhere, Robin, which is, where are we? Sorry, number 7. Preliminary final plat application SD 2103 of South Village Communities LLC to subdivide an existing 1.92 acre lot into 5 lots ranging from 0.14 acres to 0.67 acres and to append 0.1 acres to an existing 12.6 acre agricultural lot for the purpose of developing a 2-family home on each lots 92 to 95, establishing the 5th lot as a permanent open space, and expanding the existing agricultural lot at 1840 Spear Street. Who is here for the applicant?
Robin Jeffers from Indy, Ireland in South Village Community.
Patrick O'Brien.
Dave Marshall,
O'Brien.
Civil Engineering.
Great. And as for the public listening at home, as discussed before, this is preliminary and final plat. I provided a description earlier. Preliminary and final plat is the first stage of the final stage of the hearing. And then I have to ask Robin and Patrick and Dave to raise the right hand and swear to tell the truth under penalty of perjury. Okay, all three or the affirmative. And so let's talk about this project now. Tell us a little bit about it, Robin, Dave, Patrick, about this application and what we're going to be looking at.
This application is for 4 duplexes oriented westerly towards a common element, the farm, private access road, 20 feet wide, and 109, and then a private drive extending southward from that. There's a hammerhead turnaround for the private drive to serve 2 duplexes.
Okay. Then this application establishes the open space as well. Is that correct?
Yes. Sorry.
Yep, that's important for us to consider. Okay, so reviewing the staff comments regarding lot size, staff recommends the board determine effectively whether the proposed lot should be granted setback and size waivers. Staff recommends in making this determination, the board asks the applicant why they are not proposing shared lots like in the remainder of phase 2, and that the board consider whether the lots as proposed are consistent with the remainder of phase 2. So why not shared lots, Robin?
Is it okay if it's all right with you? I'm going to answer 1 and 2 together.
Sure, go ahead.
Is that all right? We have in our requesting setbacks, same as on lot 11, 10-foot front, side 5 feet, and rear 5 feet, which is what's shown on the plans. Staff talked about a 13-foot setback condition for the preserved road facing unit if needed. We're good with that. This is in keeping in balance with all the lots at South Village who have received these waivers over the course of time. I think some of this is repetitive, so I'm skipping over stuff. Why these are not the same as the balance of phase 2, these are in large part because these units are smaller in size and the lots are smaller in size. We don't really view our phases as having great differences. We view all of South Village as having many of the same attributes. This is due in large part to the internal design review standards, which are incorporated into most of our approvals. Farmway is designed to bring affordable and workforce housing to the market at the least expense possible in both building and continued ownership expense for the new owners, and the smaller units and the smaller lots equal less taxes. So that directly answers your question. We're also dealing with a very fixed area and its limits. So we are seeking a waiver for the lot coverage on these lots. And note that the newly created open space removed from the larger lot effect changes the math significantly, or more if it were counted. The condensed housing is consistent with the overall South Village design. And then there were some questions about that from staff, and so we did shoot an image over this morning, I believe, or yesterday, regarding lot to width ratio, if people wanted to see that. Comparing the sameness of this layout to the balance of South Village.
Hold on a second, I'm trying to bring it up.
While Delilah's looking for that, I have a question that kind of
Go ahead, Don.
pertains to the whole area. So am I correct in understanding, first of all, what's a snub or stub road? Is that a dead end? Marla?
Yeah,
Okay. Am I correct in understanding that there's a road that goes in that's paved and then it narrows and continues and it will be gravel and that's considered a driveway? Is that, do I have it right conceptually?
You have it right.
That's what they're proposing.
Could Delilah put up the landscape drawing?
What is the purpose of having the gravel driveway and not just having it all be paved?
We
I'll
agree.
jump in. I'm
We
sorry.
agree. We agree that it could be paved. We wanted to show the difference where the road ended and where the driveway began. The driveway dogs down significantly from the private road. And if you can zoom in any closer, there's actually a paver treatment for the turnaround on the driveway side. We were asked at Sketch to make it very clear that the 199-foot road was indeed a 199-foot road and that the driveway was different. The road is 20 feet wide, the driveway is 12 feet wide.
And why is that? I mean, is that, did we ask you to specifically do that? Is there not enough room for it to be a road? I'm just trying to understand the rationale for this.
The LDRs only allow a private road to be 200 feet.
Oh, right, okay, all right,
You
got
did, yes, you asked us to do this.
Yeah, you're under the wire.
Yep,
Thank you for clarifying that.
No problem.
I do recall that discussion. Yeah.
Additionally, we added, which is on the different landscape package, we right about where it says pavers per landscape plan. Whoops.
All right, I'm just looking for your plans right now because I don't deal with this on a daily basis and I've got one tiny little screen that I'm working with, so bear with me.
That's okay, I can talk about it. At the entrance of the driveway, we also added white 3-rail fence, which runs also all the way along the western boundary of the property. It comes into the driveway from both sides. So if you were standing on Preserve Road and you're looking down the private road, you would see that area of fence and know that you're definitely transitioning from a road to a driveway. You're not going to think it's a road that goes through. We also added a sign that said private drive. Staff found that objectionable. We're not committed to it one way or another. You can have the sign or not have the sign. We do think the fence meets the requests that you made for us at Sketch so that it is visible from any angle to denote a driveway from a road. Additionally, the road is curbed, it's wider, it has street trees, it has a sidewalk, it's got everything a normal road would have. It has a street light at the end of it. The driveway has none of those things. It's narrower, it has shrubs. A little fancy fence.
And we do want it paved.
We want the ability to pave it, yes.
Okay. We're kind of driving all over here.
There we go. I think I jumped ahead on some of the stuff because I just kept talking.
Yeah, that's all right. That's all right. But I like to tick them off as they come in. We heard your answer regarding why not propose shared lots. We did not discuss the maximum building coverage. You're proposing a 40.1% maximum lot coverage, building coverage, and the maximum lot coverage of 54.5%. I'm looking at the dimensional standards for the master plan.
We are seeking that as proposed, and we are asking for a waiver for that. And we also note that we are creating open space, which is no longer in the math for the covered area, which makes a big difference.
Yep. Yeah, I'm agreeable to that, but Board has any comments? If not, move to 3. Comments from the Director of Public Works regarding this. Has there been a update, Marla?
Yep, I heard
Did
from
Justin
Justin, who did
comment?
not have any comments on this application.
Okay, so he just didn't have anything to add. Okay. Number 4, several parcels of open space are proposed in this project with substantial network of trails. In addition, as part of the master plan, a future public recreation field was approved near the intersection of Allen and Spear. Applicant staff been working towards construction of the recreation field pursuant to the agreement with City Council. At sketch, the applicant proposed to leave the open space east of the parcel unmaintained. Staff considers the board should ask the applicant to justify this request by quantifying the proximity and the area of recreational space available elsewhere in the development. Staff notes mode level areas are desirable for recreation. Recommends the board consider asking the Recreation and Parks Committee whether adequate spaces are provided or if this space should be managed as well. What is the agreement with the City Council, Robin?
What is the agreement with the city council?
It says applicant and staff have been working towards construction of the recreation field pursuant to the agreement with the City Council. I don't know what that means.
That is not,
That's a soccer field.
it's the soccer field and it's on lot 11B, which is not part of this application. It is something that we continue to talk about and move forward on, but we're not there yet.
Right, so that's presented as context for what the available recreation is near the project.
So back at sketch, we presented images of this area in its natural state, which is that image. We also presented images of groomed areas of the same and ungroomed areas of the same. Elsewhere in South Village, the same dimensions. And we also talked to the South Village Community Stewardship Fund, who are in charge of all the open space in South Village. And they're given that power through our declaration and bylaws. And it was they who said that they wanted to see it in its preserved natural state. We presented it that way at sketch. We did not receive any negative feedback. It provides a beautiful buffer in between the backyards of the houses that currently exist on North Jefferson Road and what will be the backyards of the new homes. It's nice. It's not flat. If you were to mow it, it's not like you could have a flat playing area. It has a 10-foot drop from one end to the other, which you kind of can't tell because of all the brush. It's really quite beautiful. All those purple flowers are verbena and lovely stuff is growing in there, including those 2 pretty little trees. We thought enhancing it with additional plantings of trees, which are shown on the landscape plan, would make it a really nice, essentially a natural area that buffers backyards from one another.
And there are trails, there are walking trails through there?
The bike path goes right through there, actually. It's a beautiful bike ride. You can barely make out a little clip of pavement on that left-hand side of the image that just disappeared.
Yeah, I've been back there. Yeah, I don't.
So can I interject here for a minute? Sorry, I feel like we're getting a little bit, and this is obviously my fault because I wrote the staff comments. It seems like Robin's testimony regarding this open space relies strongly on it being the backyard. And the most substantive comment pertains to residential design and orientation of the homes. And so that's staff comment number 12. So I would, perhaps we can revisit what this open space should look like after we talk about what's the front of the homes and what's the back of the homes.
Okay. All right, put a pin in it. That makes sense, Marla. So let's move to staff comment number 5. Staff recommends the board consider the following criteria individually and in aggregate. We're talking about street, block, and pattern. Sorry, my St. Bernard just fell asleep next to me. Staff comment number 6, staff recommends the board discuss whether they consider this criteria to be met or if the applicant has failed to create a 200-foot roadway If the board accepts the street and driveway configuration, staff recommends the board conclude a condition requiring the driveway and the driveway aprons to buildings 94, 95 to be retained both as gravel and the dimensions shown. Okay, this is where we jumped out of order, where we talked about whether or not to, you want the right to pave it
Right.
or not.
So I am prepared to address 5, 6, and 7 in aggregate.
Sure, let's do it.
That was my understanding.
Yep.
And I'm going to repeat what I just said, but what the heck? I'll go fast. At DRB, at Sketch, the DRB directed us to make the private drive more distinguished from the private road. We worked extensively with TJ Boyle Landscape Architects to achieve this goal. The private road is 199 feet long, 20 foot wide, curbed, street treed, sidewalked. The private driveway is distinguished by being framed by fencing at its entrance. The driveway differs from the road in its 12-foot width and has a border of shrubs. It does not have any gate. It is further designated by a private drive sign mounted to the fence at the entrance, which frames the entry to the driveway. This creates a visual from the street level perspective. A gravel drive is shown to distinguish the drive from the overhead or plans view perspective. We believe the fencing detail most distinguishes the private drive visual at street level. We're good with removing the sign. We're okay with removing the fence if the DRB does not agree that it is not needed to distinguish the driveway, but believe it does this task well. We're not good with the requirement that the driveway to remain gravel, as it should be a hardship for a future owner, someone who is ADA, has ADA requirements and requires smooth rolling surfaces. It was our understanding that the visual differentiation was what the DRB sought from us at Sketch, and the fence, dimensional size differentiation, landscaping, curbing, and sidewalk perform the job of distinguishing the driveway from the road. That's what I have.
Okay, thank you, Robin.
We go on to 8. Are there questions?
So I think that the board really needs to go into this at length because this is
Yeah,
what the focus was of the Sketch conversation. And so the driveway being gravel or not gravel, I think it's the applicant has presented what's shown on the screen as how they are going to differentiate the road from the driveway. It includes a number of things. It includes the road being wider than the driveway. It includes a different surface treatment. It includes this hammerhead turnaround. Now it includes a fence and a sign. It includes different landscaping. Whatever of those elements the board feels, if the board feels that they have successfully differentiated the road from the driveway, then Robin is asking that they not be required to have gravel. Is it still differentiated? Are there other measures that are definitely the things that do it and that gravel is not necessary? So the first question is, have they done it? And the second question is, if they have done it, have they done it too much? Are there things that can be kind of scaled back?
So I understand that a private road can only be so long, but if they pave the driveway, why is that a big deal if they pave the driveway? Why is it a big deal that the two be differentiated? There's something I'm not getting here.
Well, I think the intent, really, what I recall the board tasking us with was if you were standing on Preserve Road, looking down Farms Edge Way, that it wouldn't look like one long road. That's why we narrow it down. That's why we have the white fence on either side. That's why we have the radius with the pavers in a private driveway sign. I think the only way you would be able to differentiate from above is if you were a bird. Therefore, I don't believe the pavement versus gravel really is applicable.
So the board at Sketch felt like they wanted this to be very clear that it was not a circumvention of the rule or a loophole, but an actual road and an actual driveway. Have they done enough? I feel like a game show. Have they done enough?
Well, yeah, I don't. The gravel versus pavement is not to me the decider of whether or not it's too much. With the differentiation, I think I like the gravel because of the because that is a distinction. But if there is a concern about wanting to preserve the right to pave in the future, could there be a condition which says they have to? Are we essentially creating a situation where we're banning the use of pavement in the future if we insist? I don't know if it's worth it.
I'm also really concerned about accessibility. I mean, people move in and buy a place there. There's gravel. Someone develops muscular dystrophy or multiple sclerosis or something, and gravel just, I don't know. I mean, we're trying to solve one problem, and in doing so, creating others, I think.
Yeah. I'm fine if you want to pay it.
Could you please zero in on where Farms Edge Road meets the driveway? Just want to point out the other features, that's all. You could see where there's a sign, you could see where there's a white fence, and then of course the pavers. I'm sure that I know I have recently been driving down a roadway or even a shared driveway that's typical in other communities, and then it pairs down to a shared driveway for 2 homes, and there's a private drive sign on it. This is really kind of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Is that consistent in South Village? Are there other places where there's, feeling of do not enter, this is a private area?
I believe there's only 2 other private drives in South Village.
But there are others.
There are several flag lots that all have that appearance, and then there's one additional shared driveway with 2 houses off the end of it. It's off of Preserve Road.
You guys want to see a Google Street view of that?
Sure.
Right. Say again where it is.
Preserve Road.
Preserve Road. Let's hope that the Google car went that far, because I think the Google car only went so far into South Village.
I don't think it's on anything we submitted. It didn't occur to me.
Where's this?
Good George.
There's free.
Hey, Matt, this is Mark.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I apologize. I'm gonna have to step out, but I just want to throw out there that I do think that I think the differentiation of the gravel driveway helps from my standpoint of a private road, but I hear the issue of the accessibility, and I guess one thing, I'm not sure how silly the idea is, but if the actual linear driveway is gravel, but we allow the actual parking areas, the driveway, the parking areas in front of the units to be asphalt. That way, sort of like it does neck down narrower and gravel, but you can actually park on asphalt for the accessibility and maintenance issue, but you still get that differentiation. Just a thought. I could lean either way in terms of the fence, the private sign, the necking it down, the additional landscaping, but I just wanted to throw out the issue of I like the gravel driveway, but I hear the accessibility thing, and say if if we allowed asphalt on the actual parking areas, but the driveway road is maintained as gravel. So on that, I do have to run, guys.
Mark, are you coming back?
Comment. I'm going to try to come back, but it might be a little bit.
Okay.
Okay.
See you, Mark. Thank you.
I don't think the Google has driven fully into your development there, so we'll go back here.
Okay, can we follow up with the vinyl fence and the private drive? Robin, can you say it a third time? What the staff was that these are excessive. What was your thoughts about revising that?
We thought, and I had just highlighted it, but I guess it's gone. Should I do that again? This is fence. This is fence. And this is a sign. Not that whole thing. Those are pavers. That's not a sign. If you're standing on Preserve Road, can you zoom out a little bit, Delilah? Please. If you were standing on Preserve Road and you look down, this is no longer accurate.
It changes when you draw. Yeah, it changes when you draw, when you change size.
All right. Let me do this. There we go. Essentially, if you're looking this way, the fence very clearly articulates the private drive from a vertical point, regardless of whether it's paved or not paved. We had suggested putting a private drive sign on this curvature piece that's very visual with the line of sight down the road. If the fence does it for you and we don't need a private road sign, we're not hung up on that. We could go with it or without it. We do think the fence provides the visual that you asked for. If the DRB doesn't agree with that, we're not stuck on it, but I would actually say I prefer the fence over not being able to have gravel, because I do think the accessibility is an issue.
Right.
Does that answer your question?
You're okay moving the sign, removing the sign.
We're okay with removing the sign. We're okay if you hate the fence, but we think the fence does what you asked us to do.
Yeah. More so than gravel.
More so than gravel.
Yeah.
And also, this whole border right here with the farm is that 3-rail fence. It's not like it's just a little section of fence popping out of nowhere. The entire fence, the entire farm, when we're done here, will be surrounded with a 3-rail fence.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm in agreement with that. No sign. Fence is fine.
Thank you.
The stub road.
The stub road, we did talk about this at sketch. This ends at the farm. This dead ends at the farm. Well, it dead ends here, but then the driveway goes to the farm, and the farm actually there's a piece of the farm that comes down to all the way to North Jefferson Road. So unless we want to run through or over the farm, which is not feasible, there is no way to continue this road.
So it can't go to another parcel.
No, it can't. That lot 63 right there is farm.
Open space.
This right here is all farm. This is connected to all
open space. It can't be developed 50 years from now from someone else.
No, it will never
Right,
be.
so that's not really the angle. The angle, and I'm not saying that, the board should deny this necessarily, but I want to point out that the angle isn't that it could potentially connect. The angle is that it could potentially not be a stub road at all. It could be 2 multifamilies with a shared driveway, or 2 triplexes with a shared driveway and a 3rd triplex facing Preserve Road. which would get them the same number or even more potentially units. And like I said, I'm not, necessarily recommending that this is a terrible idea. I'm just saying that that's not, the idea of connecting to an adjacent parcel isn't the only solution to not having a stub road.
I may add that there's,
I'm confused. Go ahead, Patrick.
I just want to add that there's a lot of history to this lot. Marla is correct. Multifamily buildings do work, and we don't have a situation with a private drive, and we actually did propose multifamilies, and the village, the entire South Village showed up at the hearing and went absolutely bonkers, so we withdrew that. We went through several iterations with the neighborhood committee and staff, and this is where we landed.
I think Marla may recall the number of letters she received from residents and their attorneys, all threatening to sue if we were to put anything larger than what we have currently proposed on that lot. What we have proposed is the result of 3 years of compromise.
Yep. Okay. Yes,
If we
I certainly remember that.
if we don't put a road in there, we can't develop it.
Okay. I've heard enough. Regarding a lot shall maintain a minimum width depth ratio of 1:2 with a ratio of 1:25 and 1:5. The proposed lots do not meet this criteria. Lots 92 and 93 are wider than they are deep. Lots 94 and 95 are closer to 1:1. Homes in the remainder of the development, including a duplex home in phase 2, are generally less consumptive than those proposed for this parcel. Staff considers that the space allotted to each dwelling unit is taken into consideration. Units on lots 94 and 95 appear to meet this criteria, but not on 92 and 93. Staff considers an alternative configuration could result in this criterion being met. So lots shall maintain with minimum duet. How do you deal with that, Robin?
We say that these lots are congruent with all the other lots at South Village. We submitted that photograph, an overhead view of all the other, of many other lots, a huge bunch of them, showing that all the duplex and triplex essentially fill up the lots like these. These 3 of them actually have a tiny bit more backyard than is normal, which we worked pretty hard to achieve. Lot 92 is very normal for a duplex or a triplex in South Village, and we feel that these are very much congruent with the overall traditional neighborhood design, which is the dense format. The lot ratios have been forgiven before. It's the only way to honestly shoehorn all these units in there.
But we also touched on this on sketch, and what we talked about was we could push the houses from the south to the north towards Preserve Road, but I remember, I forget who it was on the board, said that they would prefer to keep it as is and just give the houses a little more room.
Yeah, I do remember that discussion.
There was a comment from staff about, yeah, changing the lot sizes, but these lot sizes, if you notice the footprints that are barely visible at the bottom, these entire lots are no bigger than a house on the other side of the road. As
Keep
they're
in mind
smaller.
that the city doesn't recognize or acknowledge the footprint lots, so that's not really relevant to this discussion. Those, as far as the city are concerned, are homes on a shared lot.
We believe they are congruent. If you need to bring up that image, for comparison, I'd ask you to bring that up.
So minimum width to depth ratio, that is something that in a PUD we can waive, correct?
Supplemental submission, Robin, if you could tell me what it was called.
It's called regard to lot ratio or something like that. It is a photo.
Is it a okay. They're trying to find a standalone.
The name of it is regarding lot to width ratio image.
Yeah, Delilah, I don't think you have it in that way. I think it's only in the compiled supplemental PDF.
Okay. Then
It's page 30 of the supplemental.
all right, I am there.
Yes, I think this is the one you're looking for.
There you go.
That's it.
That's the one you wanted?
That's it. So you'll notice this is a triplex. Duplex, duplex, triplex, triplex, duplex, 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 duplex. They're all in shorts. I could probably describe it more romantically, but they're all in short, squatty lots. And the house fills up most of it with a tiny bit of yard. I believe we are very much in keeping with what's already been established as the development pattern in South Village. And it's when you have dense a development pattern, this is the result. Are there questions?
Yeah. Is there anyone on the board have a comment regarding the minimum lot width to depth ratio? Not hearing any, I'd move on to street and sidewalk parking standards. Staff recommends the board discuss whether they will accept the applicant's proposed private roadway for width for consistency with the remainder of South Village, or require the roadway width to be 24 feet. The dead end road is proposed to be 20 feet right now with a 5-foot grass strip between the roadway and the sidewalk. Minimum roadway width is 20 feet without parking. The reason for 24 feet without parking, streets are required to be 24 feet. But that includes a dead end road, I assume. The private dead end road. Is that correct, Marla?
I'm sorry, it's the 24 feet is the private dead end road, not the driveway.
Right. So private dead end roads are required to be 24 feet. You proposed a 20 feet wide with a 5-foot strip grass. What's the reasoning for, or what's the reason for going 20 feet with 5-foot grass strip? What's the purpose behind that?
We went with the 20 feet because that's what all the private roads are at South Village, and it was my recollection from sketch that the fire chief was fine with the 20 feet. It gave us more flexibility in the lot design and providing more parking for units in their driveways. If we were to make it 24 feet wide, you wouldn't have room enough for cars to park on the side of the road, but you would have less driveways. When the fire chief noted that he accepted it, we thought it was good. It is the same as all the other private roadways in South Village.
And Justin is fine with it.
Okay, any questions about the width of the roadway? Okay, comment number 11 regarding on-street parking. Sufficient space for one lane of on-street parking shall be provided on all streets except for arterials outside the SEQVC and SEQVR subdistricts. On-street parking is not provided as discussed above. Staff notes the board has approved lanes with no on-street parking elsewhere in South Village and recommends the board discuss whether to require on-street parking on this dead-end private road. With on-street parking, the road width would be required to increase from 20 to 26 feet. You don't want, I assume, parking on the street, and you want to keep it at 20 feet.
We would like to keep it at 20 feet. Have room, again, for the double wide parking in the driveways.
Right, and it's consistent with the rest of the South Village, correct?
Yes, yes, it is.
Okay, any questions about on-street parking? Okay, staff comment number 12, dealing with residential design. Staff considers the revised configuration significantly less compliant with this criterion, and because of its inconsistency with other prior approvals, recommends the board direct the applicant to return the home orientation presented at sketch, including sidewalk connections to the recreation path with fence segments at the property line to serve as delineation of the open space. Specifically, staff recommends the board require the applicant to orient the two northernmost homes towards Preserve Road, the remaining 6 homes toward the eastern open space. Staff notes that the applicant's South Village Design Review Standards document incorporated in the final plat approvals for South Village require each home to have a front walk connecting to the street or a common element. Alleys and lanes, which staff considers the private dead-end street, are not required to be connected to the homes with a walkway. Robin, can you articulate why the orientation has been changed since sketch?
Yes. We presented the current configuration, taking our cue from the DRB's recommendations on lot 11 at sketch to have the homes face the farm common element and to take advantage of the opportunity for views to the west, which are of the Adirondacks with the sneaky peaks at the lake. And the configuration presents the fronts of the homes to the fronts of all the other homes that you can see coming up and down the road and on Preserve Road. And that the configuration puts the backs of the home facing the backs of all the homes on the contiguous lots. So on North Jefferson, we now have backyard to backyard, and on Preserve Road now we now have front yard to front yard. As far as turning the unit that faces 92 to face Preserve Road, we did have it that facing Preserve. We now have 1 unit facing Preserve and 1 unit facing west. When we had it facing Preserve, there was no access to the garages from the homes, which didn't work. And when we turned it to face west, with the current orientation that you see, both homes have access to the garage and they are able to take care of that, the views as well. And we believe we're retaining the orientation on Preserve Road with that most northerly unit facing Preserve Road. We worked hard on this with TJ Boyle, the landscape architects, and they honestly feel that this is the best possible development plan for this lot. We agree with them.
Also, as you may recall at sketch, we talked at length about both of the alternatives, having the Farm's Edge Road where it's shown or have it on the other side of these houses. And I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but it seemed pretty clear to me at the time that the board members felt that this was the best. Having them front the farm should be the front.
This is the same orientation.
Note that we only have 4 board members present, which is still a quorum. We can still continue to meet, but Brian had to step out. So I don't know if you guys want to continue or save this discussion for another time, being that this is kind of the biggie. And I don't know if you want to take some testimony and then have the missing board members review it, or if you want to just call it and discuss later. And I'm sorry to interrupt, I just don't want to get too deep into the conversation and then have that conversation.
I just wanted to point out that this is now the same orientation as the west-facing units on lot 11.
Can we address the quorum issue first? Sorry, I don't want to take any more testimony until the board makes it.
No, I understand. We have 4, correct?
Yes.
We're probably going to continue this along with the other ones, the same date. We're at the second to last staff comment.
This is the biggest staff comment. You know, this affects the design. This combined with the configuration of the roadway itself most strongly affects the design of the project. So if the applicant is going to get some direction from the board to say, you know, go back to what you had at sketch, I assume that they want that sooner than later, but also I don't want the board to you know, be of two minds on this and have certain members come in and vote differently than the direction that was provided to the applicant because they weren't present for this part of the meeting.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, Marla. I understand what you're
Mr.
saying.
Chairman,
Yeah, go ahead, Patrick.
on the same token, I again recall at sketch that the board members were in favor of this plan. If they weren't, we wouldn't be showing it. So I don't think it's as the decision is as big an issue as Marla is making it might be. So
Well, I think Marla's point is consistent with, you know, I would prefer that everyone have a chance to review this and ask a question. And if three people can't be there, my preference is to continue this for the purpose of discussing this. But Patrick, your memory is correct. I remember this discussion about the orientation, and I remember.
I'm sorry, Patrick, both of you, I did review the video of this because Robin said the same thing. And I said, that doesn't sound right. That's not consistent with my notes. The board discussed the orientation of the homes on lot 11, but there was no explicit discussion of the orientation of the homes on lot 48. And the discussion focused entirely on the roadway and open space.
We just gave the warning, but we took our cue from the lot 11 review and applied it to this lot.
Yeah, and that makes sense.
Okay. Well, I'm going to suggest we continue this hearing, but before we do, we have one more comment here, and I also want to people that have maybe wanting to comment from the public, I want to give them a chance to do that as well. So let's put a pin in comment number 12. And then quickly I'll find comment 13, which is regarding the trees. The staff recommends the board require the applicant to provide more traditional street trees along the private dead-end street. In response to that, Robin?
We had these revised last week and submitted them last week.
Okay, thank you.
According to Craig's comments.
That is it for
We're on
staff
board.
comments, and I would urge us to continue so we can make sure everyone is part of the process in case they have any questions about the orientation of the homes, and we can review the plans a little bit more closely as per Marla's request. I think that's the correct request. But I also want to offer anyone in the public a chance to comment on this specific application. If you are listening at home, if you're on your computer, you can go ahead and write in the chat box, and if you have a public comment, or you can just shout out your name. I want to pause for a second to listen to anyone and to look.
Hi, Matt. This is
Not seeing
Will.
anyone, right? Hey, Will. What's your name?
Hi. Yeah, I'm from the public, so I'll if let me know when I can share a question or comment.
Yeah, you're the only one so far. Will, what's your last name for the minutes?
Will Lanier. I reside 107 North Jefferson. It's lot 37 N as in Nancy on the sketches or the diagrams.
Thank you, Will. Go ahead and provide your comment.
Yep. First of all, hi everyone. First time attending one of these, and I appreciate everyone's time. I know it's late. I guess, and it could be a little bit late to the party. We moved here about 18 months ago into this spot of 37N, and I guess my question or comment, and I'm no expert when it comes to landscape and building, but I do know currently the wetlands that are where this proposed lots are from 92 to 95, it significantly slopes down and there's a lot of water that collects there. And I'm just curious of as we build this road and these houses, is there any concern of where the excess water runoff will go? Because we all know it goes to the lowest point. I do know, I think I see like a stormwater easement or something, but I'm not too familiar with what that is. And I was just kind of concerned from my perspective and just wanted to see if anyone else was concerned with that or what that might be.
Thank you very much for that comment, Will. And it is absolutely something that Vermont statute, and we are required to maintain, require the applicant, the developer, to mitigate stormwater. It's something that the state of Vermont treats very seriously, and we do as well in the DRB. And our stormwater section chief will review anything to make sure that it takes care of any stormwater. Any other comments, Marla, regarding that public comment?
The stormwater section has reviewed these plans, and I believe their comments are in there. I think that the stormwater in this case is being treated with a gravel wetland, and then excess runoff is being conveyed somewhere that I will answer in just a second, unless Dave Marshall wants to chime in and save me some humiliation here.
Hey, Marla, yeah, on the bottom left of the drawing that you see on the screen, there's an stormwater conveyance pipe that was left as part of the original infrastructure construction for this particular phase. And ultimately that ties into the stormwater infrastructure out on North Jefferson Road. That in turn then goes out to the stormwater ponds on the east side of the roadway. So one point of interest here is that this particular area is actually over-treated beyond what the state regulations require. It's part of mitigation for a small portion of the area over on lot 11, where we couldn't get the drops of water to go all the way where we wanted them to go. So part of the site balancing approach that we worked with the stormwater utility on was to provide some over treatment and over peak flow management at this particular location. So that is, thank you for highlighting that. Those are components of the efforts to collect all of the surface runoff from these new impervious areas and to basically treat and manage them in a way that the peak flows leaving them do not exceed the capacity of the infrastructure. So what you're actually going to see in the long run is the flat area that's actually south, not south, but east or below the highlighted area actually should become drier over time, only because we're intercepting all the water that's coming off of the farm that does drain out into that area, and we're picking up and managing it and putting it into the pipe so that in theory that area actually should be drier in the future than what it's experiencing currently under those particular precipitation events.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Will. Thank you, Marla. Okay. So
Yep,
given
thank you.
the
Thank you for everyone's hard work and time. Thank you.
Thank you, Will. So given all the considerations, why don't we make it, Marla, is it acceptable for me to continue this to February 2nd? Put them all together again?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I'd like to continue SD 2103 of South Village Communities for February 2nd. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dawn, and roll call. Brian Sullivan is not present. Mark, not present. Dawn? Dawn?
Aye.
Thank you. Alyssa?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
John Wilking is not present. Matt Cota, chair votes aye, and 403. We have continued this matter to February 2nd. Robin, Dave, Patrick, we'll see you in February.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, now we move on to agenda item number 8. Agenda item number 8 is preliminary and final plat application SD 2104 of Beta Air LLC to amend a previously approved plan for an airport complex. The amendment consists of constructing a 762 square foot second story addition to an approved 60,300 square foot 3-story hangar office building at 1150 Airport Drive. Who is here for the applicant?
Joel
Chris.
Gage. Oh, go ahead, Chris.
Chris Gendron with Stantec.
civil engineer.
Hey, Chris.
Joel Page with Scott and Partners Architect.
Hey, Joel.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead,
There's
Larry.
someone else with you, Joel and Chris?
Carolyn Orban with Wagner Hodson Landscape Architecture.
Hi, Carolyn.
And Larry Lackey with the airport.
Hey, Larry. Okay, so this is preliminary and final plat application. So could I have Chris, Joel, Carolyn, Larry raise your right hand and swear to tell the truth under penalty of perjury?
I do.
I do.
And all four were in the affirmative. And so we last saw this, what was it, November? The sketch plan for an already approved project, but to amend an already approved project. And here we are at preliminary and final plat. Can you tell us a little bit about the project, the amendment to the original project, and what has changed since we last saw you at sketch? Whoever wants to go.
Chris, do you want to summarize since it's mostly site? Yeah, I can take this. Yeah, first off, thank you guys for staying up late and hearing us out and going through this with us. I appreciate it. But generally, most things didn't really change during our presentation. There wasn't a lot of, we didn't get a lot of qualms about what we were proposing. So the only minor changes we made were recently, just to help address some of the comments that we got last Wednesday from staff. So in most of those changes we'll talk about as we go through. So I won't talk about it much more now, and like I'll explain the changes we've made as we go through.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'll step through the comments. The first one is from staff is, since currently proposed project results in the loss of 13 parking spaces, staff recommends the board ask the applicant to describe their parking strategy for the existing 80 employees as discussed in more detail below. The fire chief has indicated concern about the parked vehicles blocking access to the emergency gate at the east end of the affected parking area. Staff therefore considers a viable parking strategy to be important to this proposal. And as you know, South Burlington's land development regulations do not allow us to create minimum parking standards. But given the concerns of the fire chief, we'd like to hear what the plans are to ensure access in this development. Go ahead.
Sure, I can take that. So we're actually only losing one spot. So parking supply is really not a problem for Beta anyways. They're taking the one spot out and actually replacing it with a bike parking building where they're going to have several bike parking spots that will be covered from the rain. And so bike, and what we did is we actually, I know the city doesn't have minimum standards, but they do have guidance, and based on what the requirements are for parking, it's more in like the 70 spot or spaces would be required. And right now we're going from 86 to 85. So there is plenty of parking in the area for the 80 Beta employees that can be in and out of there in a day.
But where does the loss of 13 come from?
Yeah, I was just going to ask about that. So Chris, I think the difference, and maybe I'm wrong, is that you are considering what exists on the ground today, and the staff comments are taking into consideration what you have approval for. So there's on the screen right now, I'm going to go ahead and highlight it. There's these 4 storage containers.
Right.
5. Those they never got approval for. So they're asking for approval for those now, I think, right, Chris?
Yes, we are.
And so those are in place of parking that, in terms of this project's approval, if the board were to deny this project, they would have to remove those 5 storage containers, and then that would go back to being parking. So that's where the 13 comes from.
I see now. That makes more sense. So, when you look at that location there, we did talk about this briefly as a team, and those spots aren't used. They're not actually even possible to be used. And the reason for that is that when they originally got put in, they were put in too close to the security fence, and they ended up going out there and putting in curb stops, and the spots were not sufficient to fit a vehicle. So they've just been eliminated. and not used, and then replaced with
Not
these storage
used, but-
containers. But I
they're
really
in
am.
count.
I'm sorry, say that again.
But they're not used, but are they in the count, the official count of parking
They're
spaces?
not in my 85 count. No, they may be.
Okay.
There may have been a count or a long time ago, but no. And the total number of spots on site are 85.
Okay.
Those were not included because they haven't been used in years. But I am glad you brought that up, Marla. It's an important thing to note is that we're proposing to permit these storage containers, these 5 storage containers that were originally going to be temporary, and they've turned into being more permanent just to help with Beta's research and development activities. So the point of this was to actually get those, what we thought were going to be temporary, as a permanent structure in that area, although they're already there today.
And Chris, the concern of the fire chief that the vehicles not park and block the gate, the Beta has a plan for that to ensure that doesn't
Yes.
happen.
So one thing that has already happened, so they've already put in no parking signs up on all of the storage containers. That's already been done today. The other thing that we've done is we've added, so the standard for a single lane aisle width or drive aisle width is 22 feet. Last time we talked to you, we made it 24 feet. And then there was just concern from the fire chief, concern from Beta that there still wasn't enough room. So we added an additional foot. So we have a 25-foot aisle width, and Beta has stated that they're going to discourage trucks parking along this side of the vehicle, or crew cab trucks parking along the side of the vehicle, or side of the building. So we've taken some extra steps to just ensure that that access, which is very important to both the airport and the fire chief, is maintained at all times.
I'd also say that this access is monitored, 24/7 routinely, all day and night, by airport operations.
And you know how to tow, right, Larry? All right, comment number 2, utility services. The applicant is noted by email that the only electrical changes are new light fixtures attached to buildings, but the plans call out relocate cooling equipment near the eastern edge of the project area. It's unclear from the provided electrical plans what is proposed and what is existing. Staff recommends the board require the applicant to show the proposed cooling equipment to clarify whether any other utility services are being affected. As noted below, utility cabinets are required to be fully screened. Staff notes the applicant is found at the completion of this project to have modified electrical equipment in a manner not approved by the DRB. They'll be required to amend their site plan and pay an after-fact permitting fee. So Chris, you have a response to that?
Yeah, I do. So there was some confusion about what was being proposed and what's existing. So there is, that side of the building is and always has been their kind of industrial corridor where they have HVAC equipment to support the building. And we're not proposing any of that as part of this application. That is existing equipment. The only equipment that we would be proposing is if you go all the way to the east side of the site where we're proposing our addition, there's some units on the mezzanine there. That's the only equipment that we're proposing as part of this. There's no other equipment or utilities proposed as part of this. The cooling tower, to just shed some light on that, that is actually temporary equipment that is used it's used for research and development purposes. It's if you can picture it, it's just like a 4x4x4 foot vat filled with glycol, or I don't know if it's glycol. I think it's a coolant that they use that is actually pumped into the building, and they use it temporarily. What they're going to do is remove it during construction, and then if they need it, they'll bring it back. If they don't need it, then they'll store it inside somewhere. So
it's like a glorified car radiator to cool engines that they're testing in the facility.
There you go.
Okay, so it's something that's moved around.
It's portable, but it would be in that general area unless they want to move it to another location in the facility if they're changing sort of their R&D structure, the building.
It is tucked away behind one of the storage containers and underneath the building, underneath the addition.
Okay, so I don't have any familiarity with this. Does that mean it has to be, Marla, does that mean it have to be on the plan? This isn't an HVAC equipment. This is something else.
Right, so it's not on a pad. It's just on gravel and you could put it on skid steer and move it somewhere else.
Yes.
Okay, then no, it's equipment. It doesn't need to be on the plan.
Okay, thanks. Okay, number 3, the applicant, as part of the previous not yet constructed amendment, received approval for an enclosed dumpster. Since this dumpster is not proposed as part of the current application, the applicant is proposing to construct a dumpster pad and enclosure fence near the southwestern edge of the project area. They have provided screening details showing that the enclosure will be 6 feet high, constructed of metal mesh, but the detail alternatively calls out corten steel, which will weather to show rust coloration, and aluminum, which will either not weather if treated, galvanize, or weather slowly to a white color. Staff recommends the board ask the applicant to clarify the proposed screening, which should be noted in the findings.
Yes. So it looks like based on the availability of us getting the screening and the cost for corten, we will be looking at aluminum as a final finish.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. Staff comment number 4, the staff is asking us to ask you to describe the snow plowing operations and consider whether to require additional curbing, curb stops, or bollards.
So to the first part of that question, the snow storage question, they're going to store right now they'll plow it to the south end of the southern lot. And let's say if they have more snow than they can handle, BTV has historically in what they normally would do is they'll take it to a location on site, a dedicated location on site on the airport, and plow it, or not plow it, but truck it there and dispose of it there if there's excess snow.
Yeah.
And then the second part of that question, there are bollards along the stretch of there's bollards along that stretch, and there's also some rub rails installed between those bollards. So what we're proposing are electrical vehicle charging stations attached to these bollards. So each parking spot essentially can't drive forward because they're going to be impeded by either a rub rail or a bollard. In addition, we know that there are some locations where the grass was right up against the pavement edge, and we thought that just to give it a little extra protection, we thought it would be a good idea to add an extra foot, so that way of a gravel protection area to prevent a plow from damaging the landscaping proposed, which is mainly decorative grasses.
Right. Okay, thank you for Chris. Staff number 5, the first part of it is moot, dealing with the cooling unit. Staff also recommends the board exempt the electric vehicle charging stations from compliance with screening criteria. That makes sense to me. Fire chief, again, expressing concern about the 4 spaces abutting the storage containers. We talked about that, the no parking signs, the tow trucks on patrol. At the very least, there should be no parking signage. Okay. The staff recommends the board discuss whether to require the applicant to move the EV spaces to the east end of the building to reduce potential conflicts and to install no parking signage along the southern boundary of the fire lane. Staff considers a signage indicating no parking this side or no parking fire lane on the containers may be more effective than signage on the fence. So there is signage on the fence right now.
There's signage on the storage containers. Yep.
There is on the storage containers? Okay.
Yep.
Moving the EV spaces in response to the fire chief's comment, is that something you considered?
I think I did consider it, and then what I did is to compromise that, because the way the existing conduit works now, there's EV charging stations out there now. We're just trying to formalize it. To bring conduit down there and add bollards, you'd be conflicting with the proposed corten steel planters that we proposed down there. It just didn't make a lot of sense to do them in that location logistically. So we would prefer to have the charging stations where they are proposed now and keeping those spots, but given we did give extra width to the aisle. So instead of the standard 22, we've got 25. So it should be, if the fire chief should be able to review it and hopefully find that sufficient.
Yeah, I did note to him that it was 25. And he said, well, what about big pickup trucks? You know, please at least take this into consideration. So it wasn't like a hard and fast recommendation from the fire chief. It was more like, ask the board to weigh all the factors and make their decision.
Yeah, and I'll add that in addition, speaking with Beta directly, they've made some, you know, hey, we're going to send it. Beta knows the people that work there. The people that work there know not to park big trucks there. They've, you know, if in the past they've gotten their hand slapped, that they know not to block that entryway into the airport.
I've actually been out there with operations and there was a truck parked there, and believe me, they got called right away. So
yeah, it's.
Was it your truck, Larry? Was it your truck?
No. It was actually a tractor trailer. It's like, what's that doing there? So, but they got it moved quickly.
Yeah.
Good. Is there any other comments from the board before I ask the public opportunity to speak? Okay, if there's anyone in the public that would like to comment on this proposal, please say your name or enter your comment or your name into the chat box. Not seeing none, not seeing any comments, requests, not hearing any. Then I would make a motion that we close preliminary final application SD 2104.
I will second that.
Seconded by Don. And roll call. Brian Sullivan, not present. Mark Baer, not present. Don Filbert.
Aye.
Liz Hiring.
Aye.
Jim Langen.
Aye.
John Wilking, not present. Matt Cota votes aye. And 403, we have closed SD 2104. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Carolyn, thank you very much.
Have a great night.
Here.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the minutes of December 15th. Had a chance to review the minutes from December 15th. I don't have any suggested changes or edits. Does anyone else have any suggested changes or edits to the minutes?
Not me.
So, Sue, you did it again. Great job. All right, I would move that we approve the minutes from December 15th, 2020.
I second.
I'm going to second it.
Seconded by Jim. I don't know
Sure.
who seconded it. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed. And 403, minutes pass. Last item on the agenda is other business. Is there any other business to discuss? No other business. Then that concludes the South Burlington Development Review Board meeting for Tuesday, January 5th, 2021. See y'all in 2 weeks.
You
Bye-bye.
bet. Bye.
Yeah, great job.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.